Guys,
on.
I'm just a science nerd. I have
No,
no
I
purpose.
don't
I'm here to
care.
get along. I'm here to get along with
Why
everybody.
can't we all get along?
What
Man,
is this?
if
let
only.
me
What is this?
let me just trick the audience one more time. 200 of my
Hey,
are we
look, I
live?
rescued this dog. I rescued
Nick,
the
are we
dog.
live? We're
my
live.
PR team told me that this would generate a higher
I got a
P-score.
phone call from a board member who used to be important and relevant 15 years ago, and he told me to feel bad about myself.
Oh, this is so funny. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop, David.
All right, stop. Stop beating up on him. We're on the show.
Okay.
We are live. Hey everybody.
Nick, do you want to do gallery mode? Because I'm looking on YouTube and it's single.
Yeah. Let's see all the comments.
No,
All right,
gallery mode,
everybody.
Nick.
We're gallery mode now.
Welcome to.
Okay.
We are here live. It
Oh
is
wait, hold
election
on,
night.
guys.
And
I'll give you one guess.
can I open the show?
What is in my thermos?
I think I know what's in your thermos.
Montrachet. Montrachet?
I mean, who puts Screaming Eagle in a thermos?
Screaming Eagle.
What is it, liberal
He does
tears?
Oh my Lord.
He's at the office drinking.
What did you call
HR. Liberal tears.
tears.
Liberal tears. He's
You know,
drinking liberal tears.
No, Nat made me walk here. You know, we walk at night.
Yeah,
she's
no,
like,
I always
Wait,
We're walk-
sorry. We
He's
have
like,
we
we're
have a
walking-
break in. We have a David Sachs break in.
We have a
happening.
walk.
Uh-oh, we have
to
breaking
walk
news.
to the office, so I had to put the
Hold on,
blind-
everybody. We have a breaking news story coming to us live from a private club somewhere in Florida. It's David Sachs.
Wait, sorry. How do you show the comments and stuff? I don't even see the comments.
Go to YouTube, type in all in.
What do you mean go to YouTube? I'm on. Isn't
That's
this
where the
on
comments are.
YouTube?
Uh-oh. There he is.
Hey, guys.
Saxy poo.
Hey!
Oh. Who you got there
happening,
with
guys?
you?
Hey, can you hear us?
I've got Donald Trump with me. Donald
Donald
Trump
Trump.
Jr.
It's like,
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Is he in founder mode?
Donald Trump Jr. But actually, are we live yet, or what's happening?
are.
We're
are.
live. Do not
Yeah.
say
Live on
anything
YouTube.
inappropriate, Don
you are
Jr.
live.
Okay.
Do not
'Cause I'm-
say
I'm
anything
No promises,
inappropriate.
but David won't. But I can't make any promises right now because I died 2 days ago and I'm just living on caffeine, nicotine, and testosterone. So
Yeah. Freeberg's actually taking the TRT as well. He's doing the testosterone treatment. Hasn't
Saxy
worked
poo,
yet.
you were amazing on Tucker.
Yeah, nicely done on
Oh,
Tucker.
thanks. Yeah.
I thought you did a really good job.
So I just want to make sure that you guys can see and hear us, okay? Because we're using my personal hotspot on my phone and broadcasting from my laptop. So I just want to make sure.
Good enough.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah, you
Looks a
sound
little
good.
fuzzy. But tell
22
us where you are.
Yeah, where are you guys?
Well, I'm at the beautiful Mar-a-Lago.
we're at the Lago.
You're at the
wanna-
Lago.
actually, I
you
don't
guys
know.
you guys are coming in great, and the
Kinda
comments are
set up
going
here,
fast
or-
and furious.
How much is it to be
yeah.
a member, Don Jr.? How much is it to be a member of Mar-a-Lago?
About $500,000 right now. It's
What?
May go up after tomorrow.
$500,000? Really?
yeah, it's like the betting markets. You never know. It probably goes up depending on what happens tonight or tomorrow or in
Yeah.
3 weeks, unless they find a couple truckloads of ballots that were filled in a warehouse somewhere.
But could
and
you
Jake
got-
Cal
yeah.
Mar-a-Lago, even if he had the 500,000?
Yeah, can I
Yeah,
come
well,
to
they-
Mar-a-Lago
we
for
do-
a
we
burger?
do
I heard the
cap it at
burger's great.
500 members. So yeah.
You could work at Mar-a-Lago, maybe.
Absolutely. Do you need somebody for the gatehouse to?
Well, I think everybody needs a turncoat.
We're always
So-
looking for security, espally these days,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
that's
yeah,
been
you
lacking
never
for the
know who
last
could
couple
break
months.
in the door. Yeah.
Hey Don, do you want to just give us a little bit of color, sort of on the ground as you see it in real time? Whatever
Yeah.
you can share that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, listen, I'm an open book. I'll share everything I know. I mean, still obviously up in the air. Need everyone to turn up. I think if you're looking at it, you probably rather be us than them right now. That doesn't account for, any nonsense or games, but it seems, they called Georgia and North Carolina for us just now. We have sort of really good, almost unprecedented rural turnout. A lot of places in the cities, not so good. I just got an update from some of my friends that are politicos sort of in Pennsylvania. Lackawanna County is like tied. That's unheard of. A lot of places there. I think we got in Wisconsin, 51% of the 18 to 29 vote.
Yeah.
That's not been, I don't think that's ever been done by Republicans. I think we're pushing 20% of the African-American vote there. That doesn't surprise me. For me, as I've gone around the country for the last few months, per capita, I think I've taken more selfies with African American men than anyone. So, I felt a lot of these kind of cultural shifts on the ground, not at a Trump rally, but like just in places where, if I'm at the random airport going through Detroit or whatever it may be. So, it feels pretty good. There's still, still a lot of unknowns. Who knows? Maybe they have some anomalies, but I think they really need like massive, massive overperformance, on same day voting that they don't have. They've been voting for weeks on end for years. People do that. So it feels like a lot of their vote is already baked. In some of these places where it's close to tied, our election day vote is still going to come in, and that's still going to be, heavily towards us. So, a lot of unknowns. It seems like we covered the East Coast pretty well. We broke some records.
Don, if you had to separate the party and the ideology for a second, if this holds, what is 75, 80 odd million Americans telling the rest of America in terms of the ideology that matters?
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't like, if we pull this off, this isn't like the Republican Party won.
Right. Exactly.
I think it's really it's America first, and it's very different. It's just different, and so a big part of my push towards JD for the VP slot and all of that was to perpetuate that, because I feels like that's where real Americans are on the ground. It's certainly on the conservative side of things. That's where they are. And the traditional party still thinks that Mitch McConnell has said it for the last few years. The number one issue for Republicans across the country is Ukraine, and I'm like, what? Like, what? I've spoken to more Republicans in the last week across the country than Mitch McConnell has in his entire 273-year career in the Senate, and and since the Ukraine war broke out, I've surveyed Republicans when I speak. If it's 500 people here, 5,000 people there, I've surveyed over 100,000 people live in real time where I'll give them the mic. And so far, of about 100,000, maybe a little bit more than that, 4 people have said that Ukraine is a top 10 issue for them. None of them have been top 3. And I'll ask them, is it top 3? Is it top 10? 4 people. One guy I asked, what's the deal? He was from Kiev, Ukraine. So I was like, I'm going to give you a pass.
Yeah.
Another guy had worked there for like 15 years. So, he said it was 10.5. So it wasn't really a big one for him. But it was close. One guy misunderstood the question. It was a double negative. He thought it was a double negative. And so he was actually for us and didn't. And the other guy worked at Raytheon. So you understand why he wanted to keep selling missiles. And so, there's just a big divergence between swamp Republicans and sort of that establishment Republican Party, and where, conservatives around the country are. I think my father tapped into that in 2016. I think 2020 sort of an anomaly year because you sort of weaponized COVID and all the insanity around that. And, that didn't mean we were perfect on any of these things, but I think, a strange anomaly. But, the base is definitely not with, what would have been, traditional Republican Party or traditional conservatism. It's really that America First thing that I'm seeing heavy around the place right now. And that's what's bringing in a lot. I think we swung independents 20 points in North Carolina and Georgia, since 2020. And it's because of those things, not because they want to go back to sort of the Republican like warmongering party.
Don, a major issue that people have wanted to talk to you about is government spending. So you've engaged Elon in this DOGE, this Department of Government Efficiency. What are the chances that we'll be sitting here 4 years from now and the debt will have changed in any way? Do you think your dad and Elon can actually cut $1 trillion or $2 trillion from the debt or not? And if so,
listen, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm most excited about. That doesn't mean they're just going to roll over easily, right? I think my father had a mandate to do a lot of things in 2016. That doesn't mean the swamp is going to go along with it. But when you have the opportunity to basically have the Einstein of our era go in there and do this, a guy that's doing more in space than NASA with a 75-year head start, you know what? I'll roll the dice with that. You saw Ron Paul jump into the conversation, a couple of days ago. People are just super excited about that. When the interest on our debt right now is $1 trillion a year by itself. I mean, that's bigger than the GDP of most countries, most successful countries. We're just spending it in interest. I'm willing to give those guys a shot. It doesn't mean the government, DC, the bureaucracy, which they're going to cut. I mean, Elon did that with Twitter when he took it over. He cut 80% of the workforce, and it functioned better. I think DC that the same would happen, but they're not just going to roll over. You can't just fire them.
I think
That's
yeah.
going to
So
take time and process.
Don, on
I think
that,
it's probably
on that,
yeah.
I was just
No,
going to
sorry.
say on that topic, DC isn't going to roll over. And if we saw a flavor of Donald Trump's attempt to drain the swamp, he's been very honest about what went right and wrong. And part of what went wrong was, I guess, team selection. And, you've really led the charge to make sure that the team selection in this second iteration, if it comes to pass, is going to be markedly different. Have you guys spent time thinking about what the deep state tries to do to stop you this time around? And are you planning around that? Like, are you spending any time thinking about what that looks like?
Yeah, we are. I mean, listen, when it comes to transition, I'm going to be very involved. That's the only thing I wanted it to do, and it wasn't about actually placing someone in a position. It was really just blocking the guys that were going to be the guys that were going to slow roll you. The guys that pretend they're on your side, but they know better, even if though they're they know everything, even though they're unelected bureaucrats. They're going to stymie what the duly elected president of the United States wants to do. So that playbook is long and vicious of what they will do. But when my father took office, and I'm glad he's honest about that, because I think it was his biggest miss last time. And though it's sort of hard to fault him, he came to D.C. The first time he ever spent a night in Washington, D.C. was the first night he moved into the White House. Someone has an R next to your name, and some politician who was maybe great to you. No, this is the guy. This is the guy. But D.C. it's different than business, where you sort of understand where people want to be. People who may even agree with you, may be on your side. They'll shank you to get a good article somewhere, or to get, the contract here or the consulting fee here. It's just a very different world. I think with 4 years of experience, I think we know who those people are. We've seen who are the good brokers, who are the dishonest guys. You keep them out of the process, and that becomes a lot easier. You also put in the guys that are actually willing to fight that. On our side, on the conservative side, so few guys are actually willing to fight. They'll sit there. They rather get the nice guy treatment from the Washington Post, who would put them in the gulags if they could do it on their own volition. There are some guys that are killers on our side that are actually willing to engage and take on those things. I think we know who those people are. I think we're going to put those guys in, and I think that makes that process easier. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It just means it's doable. And, I think the reality is, everything that's gone on for the last half century has been an abject failure in our government. And so, with enough of a mandate from the people, with enough exposure, with enough transparency, which you have none of in Washington, D.C., I think Elon will really help with that. By the way, I don't think this race would even be close if it wasn't for what Elon's doing with X and just showing people what's going on, enabling them to communicate. Even today, being able to show people, what's happening in real time when the games are played, and enabling us to put legal guys, right on something the second they tried shutting down a polling location or they're playing games. I think that kind of transparency is the greatest disinfectant. And if we do that, I think it's really important. I hope we set a precedent for other people to buy into this, which will be great for the American people.
Yeah.
Don, have you
All right,
met
with
Congressman Ro Khanna?
Yeah, joining us, Congressman Ro.
Hey, Ro,
Khanna
how are
from
you?
California.
Good.
Hi, how are you? We may have met, but yeah, we don't know each other well.
Well,
Shaking a lot of hands in DC.
I know you, of course. Everyone in the country knows you. But look, whoever wins this, it's time for this country to come together. I think we've got to go do big things. We've got to set up manufacturing around America. I've always respected Elon for the innovation. I just think we've got to figure out, how do we heal this country? How do we do big things? Whoever wins. And
Ro, what are you hearing on the ground on your side?
look, I mean, I obviously right now it's a tough situation. I mean, we got to have a clean sweep of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. I mean, that's the reality, and it's doable, but it's going to be an uphill. I mean, that's the honest truth. And I don't want to spin things. I mean, everyone sees the data.
Ro, I asked Don this question earlier, but I think a lot of what is this reducing to, and he said this as well, because I think Don Jr.'s interpretation, as well as the team's interpretation, is that this is not a Republican ticket, right? And so instead, it was sort of an ideology that was put on referendum. And if you had to answer the question, what do you think the Democratic ideology was that they put up for vote? What was that?
Well, I think we obviously ran on abortion rights. I think we ran on making sure that you had a inclusive democracy. But I think we need to do more on the economy, about what is our vision to create good paying jobs. What is our vision to have manufacturing? I think we needed to go more on these podcasts. I mean, you guys have had me on. I was an advocate saying Vice President Harris should come on All In, go on Joe Rogan, go talk to folks, engage in ideas. But, look, I don't know who's going to win, but given that Don is on, my plea would be, let's figure out whoever the next president is, to figure out how we turn a page forward and start to spend the next year doing stuff for the country. I'm willing to do that, whoever wins. And I just hope people are sick of the division in this country. I hope that's what's going to happen.
And the sentiment is great. I think we do have to move forward as a country, independent of whoever wins. But let's handicap what happened here in this election. We saw the hot swap, Biden giving way to Harris, but you did not do the Democratic speed run primary. Looking back on that, was that a mistake?
I don't think that was a mistake. I think there'll be questions about whether he should have gotten out a year before. I mean, that was his decision. Having 100 days before an election, as it is, I think the vice president probably didn't have enough time to introduce herself. So if we had added to that a month of selecting the candidate, I'm not sure that would have made much of a difference. But, and people will say, should we have had a process after the midterms? And of course, that's will be an openly debated question.
Freeberg, you haven't had a question yet. What are your thoughts here for Don and for Roe?
Well, Don, I was going to go back to the point about, I don't think we've ever had anyone step into office, at least in 30 years, that said, hey, you know what, I'm going to cut spending dramatically like this. We're going to really go in and slash the wasteful, inadequate kind of spending of taxpayer dollars. But how do you think about the overall debt situation and where we end up in 4 years? Does the administration need to worry about that? And Ro, I think the same question for you. And the Democrats I've met with in private, but they won't say publicly, they point out we're going to have to cut entitlements at some point. We're going to have to do something because it's an unsustainable kind of situation. I'd love to kind of hear the dual party kind of point of view on how much debt is too much, and is that a mandate? Is that, slashing cost is a mandate, but is cutting the debt a mandate? It's kind of making that manageable.
Listen, I agree. I think it's untenable. I already brought it up without the question about, $1 trillion just in the interest component of this, right? This is not sustainable. And, both Republicans and Democrats are guilty of this. I think Mitch McConnell once told my father, basically, like, no one's ever won an election, by spending, or never lost an election by spending too much. And that's the problem. Everyone just sort of buys their vote with money that we don't really have. So it's a big problem. I love that. My father, basically, he's not running for re-election again. So 4 years of him in there, not trying to run for re-election as a business guy with the team that's surrounding him, you can actually get real change done. When you have the career politicians, they talk about it, they get it, they understand it. It's not.
Oh, we got broken.
Looks like we may have lost.
Well, Ro, how much do you think about it?
Well, I think it's a huge issue. And let me give you two ways I think we could actually reduce the deficit concretely. One is we've got a defense budget, to Don's point about, look, it's a huge issue. We've got a defense budget that's $1 trillion. Now, we've got the 5 prime contractors that make tons of money. I mean, Lockheed Martin has gotten $1.7 trillion of cost overruns on the F-35s. We've got to open that up. Have defense innovation, have new technology companies bid on these projects so that we can reduce the costs, so we can be more competitive. The other thing is AI.
Well, Ro, can I just double click? The reason why we spend so much money is because we virtue signal. Let me give you an example. When you talk about the defense budget, you're not looking for the cheapest, fastest, best solution. The government has defined all these idiotic boundary conditions so that people can feel like they're included in the participation of making something. And if you actually separated the cost from the outcome, you'd be able to get something that doesn't cost $1 trillion or $2 trillion. You'd go to companies like Anduril, and all of a sudden they would make the things we need to protect America at virtually no cost, because they find that making it is still very remunerative for them. The problem is really in the government and how we frame what the goals are. So how do we change the goals?
You're absolutely right. Mike Rogers is a Republican from Alabama. He's the chair of the House Armed Services Committee. He and I and Adam Smith did a bipartisan hearing in Silicon Valley just a month ago about exactly this. And the big feedback we said is we have to have an outcomes-oriented defense procurement system, not where we specify everything. And we've got to open it up to more than the 5 primes. And whether it's Kamala Harris, if she still has a path for sweeping the Rust Belt states, or whether it's President Trump, I hope that they will help work with the House Armed Services Committee to reform the process, to open it up for outcome-based solutions, and to have some of these new defense tech companies have a fair shot at the contract bidding. It's totally rigged right now.
Is it that, or is it a philosophical
By the way,
decision that it's not about soccer medals and it's about the best?
Well, I think it's partly. Have you ever wondered?
I think it's actually worse than that.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me just say this. Have you ever wondered, you get why like Silicon Valley, when you're there, is one of the richest places in the world? I mean, it makes sense. You've got Elon, you've got NVIDIA, Apple. Have you ever wondered when you go to Arlington, like, why is it that everyone there lives in like $10 million homes? Why is that the richest part next to Silicon Valley, the richest part of America? It's because there's a system of defense contractors, and the 5 primes rig the system. They get the contracts. Their cost overruns. They make Congress look impotent. We're like, oh, Lockheed, you still haven't given us the F-35s. You still haven't given us the weapons that we promised Japan. I mean, our ambassador in Japan, Rahm Emanuel, is saying we still haven't been able to produce the weapons we're supposed to get there. And you know what? Republicans are frustrated. You talk to Mike Rogers, Democrats on the committee are frustrated. And I hope whoever the next president is can help us
Don,
you fix this.
You were going to say
Don, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, it's actually bigger than just Congress. It's also the generals. Everyone wants the board seat at Raytheon. You get that by spending money, making them money. My father, I remember him talking a lot when he was doing the Air Force One contract, right? It's 2 747s, and it was like a $6 billion contract. I understand it's fitted a little bit more, but he's like, it's got to have a 4 in front of it. And they're like, okay. I mean, he saved $1 billion like that. He's like, well, why didn't we do this before? Well, no one's ever asked us to cut anything.
Right.
When you have people that are bureaucrats, they've never run a business, they've never negotiated anything. They do that. The generals have no incentive to save any money because, again, their off ramp is usually a board seat at one of these companies. You got to get everyone else involved. I mean, it literally took one phone call to save $1 billion on a $6 billion contract. Not an insignificant percentage, but they were like, yeah, we can do that. We can make that work.
Well,
the second he leaves office, they were back to the old number because they knew no one would actually think to ask. And so we also have to be proactive about it, understand that all of the actors in this aren't necessarily functioning either honestly or don't have enough business sense to even think about trying to save money because they've never had to. They've never been held accountable for that number. And that was just one example of many that he uses just because it's so close to him being Air Force One. But this is across the board in all of these things.
It's
They're
across
just
the
like,
board.
yeah, we'll put a high number in because no one's ever told us no.
Exactly. And just to build on your point, what you find out when you deal with government is they have these yearly budgets, and it's a use it or lose it philosophy. And so to your point, when you start getting close to the end of the fiscal year and all of a sudden you have these huge amounts of dollars that you're allowed to spend, and in return, companies will take you out, they wine you, they dine you. Of course, you want to allocate capital to them. There is no incentive to save money. If instead you sort of figured out a way to actually incentivize these bureaucrats to actually save money, to your point, you'd probably cut the cost of Air Force One, just in that example, by more than 80%, because it doesn't cost, as many of us know in private aviation, you can build an incredible airplane for a lot less than $4 billion an airplane.
Sachs, we haven't heard from you so far. What are your thoughts so far on the election results and then the topic at hand, which is Doge? And we're live here on the All In podcast. 35,000 people watching live.
I know. Well, I'm worried about losing our connection here because it's unstable, and I need to get to the next place. So let me just thank Donald Trump Jr. for appearing on our pod.
Appreciate it.
And I wanted to say
That's
that
great. Thank you.
I think that Don is a tremendous asset to his father. I don't think people know that or give you enough appreciation for that. And-
I appreciate it.
and
Well, I am not actually an agent of Russia, to your point of unity, despite what was 4 years of
I've never
4
said
years
that.
of hell. So I agree with you on the unity component, but I do take that one a little personally. That's some of your colleagues. That wasn't you. I think you were pretty reasonable on the subject, but after the crap I dealt with, I was like, I don't know.
There was
Yeah,
an article in the
I'll say
Wall
something
Street
nice about Ro,
Journal.
too.
There was an article in the Wall Street Journal where you gave a comment recently, and it was fabulous. And I think that you, like your father, when people get to know you, a very honest broker. So thank you for what you've been doing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Don is right that he really does have his finger on the pulse. He's been out campaigning. He does talk to people on the ground, and it's not the old traditional, let's call it Mitch McConnell Republicanism. It's a true America First agenda. And I actually think there's probably a lot of things that you guys could maybe agree with Ro Khanna, because I think, Ro, to your credit, I think you're one of my favorite Democrats because you're motivated by the issues. You believe in dialogue, and you believe in discourse and free speech. And you're not a warmonger either. So you and Don Jr., I think, could maybe agree on that and maybe find some things to work together on. So
I appreciate that. And I appreciate, David, you're having that forum. And, I've been critical of a lot of the overseas military interventions. That JD Vance and I went with Tim Ryan in Ohio with venture capitalists talking about what we could do in investing in Ohio. So here's my commitment. Obviously, I'm still hoping that Vice President Harris pulls it out. But if it's President Trump, I am going to say, let's figure out how we work together to get things done. People are sick and tired of just division.
What a great
gladly
message
do that, my
here on tonight, and we'll all, I guess, let's all have dinner and start working on it. Thank you so much, Ro Khanna. Thank you so much, Don Jr. Sachs, we will see you from the next.
I'll call in from the next location. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you being on the show.
All right, here we go. We have 35,000 people watching live, and the surprise guests are going to keep coming, everybody. Lots of high-profile people coming on tonight, and we are sitting here at 9:30 Texas time, 10:30 in New York, and obviously that means
All right, let's go through
7:30.
That means that it's almost Trump o'clock here in California.
And it's almost Trump o'clock in California. Let's go ahead and just take a look at the polls here. New York Times is saying it is looking like the Electoral College will be 297 for Trump, 241, 83% chance of a Trump victory. Georgia, very likely. North Carolina, likely for Trump. And then Virginia, Pennsylvania's a toss-up. Wisconsin's a toss-up. So there's still a chance for Kamala fans out there, but it is looking like the red wave is happening in real time here on the All In podcast.
So the New York Times shows Trump 51-48.
Okay.
That is going to end up being 3 electoral votes. North Carolina is a very likely Trump 76% chance to win that.
Yep.
53-46. And Virginia, very likely Harris, 49.3, 49.1.
I mean, Georgia's the real surprise, right?
My electoral team has Virginia leaning Dem, but I'm going to refute that and see. I have to go back.
What's your electoral
Virginia
team?
right now is showing
I have an electoral team
74%
in real time.
Oh, are they? Absolutely. And is that your sommelier?
Yeah.
Or Nat?
Excuse me? How dare you say that my electoral team is not?
Get over here, Nat. Get in here. Nat, it's me.
She's got her curlers and she's taking out her curlers. You're so
Let's
vain.
see the curlers, Nat.
No, just keep
She's
the
not
curlers.
vain.
and
She's
got
beautiful.
curlers.
There's a difference. She's not vain. She's stunning.
She made me walk here, but I brought my wine in a thermos. This is 2005 Colgan, by the way. It's delicious.
Are you at your office?
Yeah.
He went to the office to tape. He's got Nat with her.
And
And
let's keep going through the updates here because we've got news coming in.
there's a lot of news coming in. And
Let's get Muth so that Muth can.
all right, fine. Now I just want to we'll bring
Muth,
Muth
would you
on,
please?
but we just have to give a slight disclaimer here.
There's no disclaimer.
4 years ago, he was kicked off the show permanently.
Stop.
We're
Stop.
giving him a
Stop.
second chance.
Stop.
You did it, not me. What are you telling me to stop? We love Helmuth,
Hey, Nick.
world's
Nick,
greatest poker player. Let's get
Who-
Nick.
Who was our
Yes,
7:30
yes.
guest? Can we get mute, please?
And Dean Phillips is joining us very
Oh,
shortly.
Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we got a
great.
whole lineup here. I have a surprise guest that is going to blow your mind. I'm not going to say who it is.
Is your
but there's-
surprise guest definitely joining us?
Gentlemen, I have a surprise guest as well.
Who do you have?
Oh no. All right. Producer Nick, are you
Jason,
there?
we want to take a quick look at the Polymarket odds, if you know what I mean.
Oh, Polymarket odds. You know, I have a question for these gentlemen. What do you think of Polymarket, I guess, called the election here? For months we've been talking.
By the way, Polymarket has been the funnest site to sweat these things. I think though that we need to launch a couple of our own polls on top of Polymarket now. So JCal, we should launch something with Polymarket. We should call them and figure out how to do it.
Yes.
But we should do the $2 trillion.
Yeah, that was the bet I was trying to get people on the group chat to take would be.
So it's the federal deficit. It's the federal debt.
Yes.
After the next presidential cycle. So 4 years from now, what will the federal debt level be?
That's a great bet. That's
the
a
market.
The bet.
That's the market. And we should put that.
Sorry,
on
do you call
Polymarket.
them markets or bets?
It's a market.
Yeah, sure.
It's a market.
Okay,
You can trade it. Yeah.
Okay, let's trade that. I want to trade the debt market, number one.
Federal debt market.
Okay. What else is a great one to? Oh, we should trade. Who is the? What would be a good one? Well, if Donald Trump and JD Vance wins, we should have a market for who would JD's VP pick be. I think I have.
I want to do a short-term market on who is Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of State.
Oh, those are great.
Well,
we might have some inside information. Wait, this is something where we could.
Jason, stop.
Wait a second. We might have. The fix might be in.
Nobody.
Okay, who's joining us, by the way? Pennsylvania update: 50.94 Trump, 48.13 Harris, 56.5% in. That one is so tight. Are you guys watching this on the TV as well?
I'm not watching on the TV. I'm trying to moderate this. We have our next guest is coming. He appeared on the program. One of the few Democrats who was brave enough to come on the All In podcast in the election season where podcasts obviously had a major role.
That's not true. We had 2 out of 3 presidential candidates. Meaning, he's an amazing human being. I'm just saying we had both Dean Phillips and Bobby Kennedy as Democrats when they were running for president.
Was he an independent when he came on, or was he trying to go as Democrat?
He was a Democrat.
He was a Democrat. You're right. So we had 2 of the Democratic hopefuls on. And our next guest who will be joining us in a moment is Dean Phillips. He was on episode 154. Just incredibly brave. If you remember, Chamath, he came on the show and he said, listen, what you're seeing with Biden
Dean called it.
He called it.
He was the first person to actually say the quiet part out loud, which must have been very complicated for him in terms of potential blowback, but he did it.
It was very brave because
it was a profile in courage.
He stood out from the Democratic Party by saying, I think that Joe Biden is not equipped to have another term as president. And the cognitive decline was obvious to so many internally. It was obvious to so many people publicly. And here he is.
And here he is, our friend of the All In Pod, Dean Phillips. How are you, sir?
What's the acronym for that?
Friend of the pod? You're a photub. Friend of the pod. Yeah, photub. How are you feeling right now? It's got to be in some ways, if Trump wins, particularly brutal for you because, listen, you didn't get a fair shake. And when they did swap out Biden, they didn't even let you run and do a speed run primary. And that, to me, was the most infuriating part of all this. I felt like you should have been given a shot and there should have been a speed run primary. How are you feeling right now at this moment in time?
Well, it's a combination. First of all, good to see you guys. And I want to say thank you, by the way. I can't tell you how many people, not just in the US, but around the world, said that they were introduced to me, not from MSNBC or any of the networks, but by you guys. And I just want to acknowledge that and let you know how meaningful all of you are to the country and to me. with that said, you can imagine I'm incredulous, JCal. This was predictable. I don't think she's going to win tonight. This is what happens when a country that is predicated on competition goes with, well, in this case, a party goes with selection instead of election. And I was simply calling for competition. You guys know it very well. People want winners. They want people to duke it out. They want people to win with ideas. They want battle tested. They don't like anointments. They don't like coronations. I know that. You know that. The country knows that. And I just can't believe that the party that I've been loyal to and a member of and fought for would be so blind to reality. And that's how I feel right now.
In a way,
Dean,
Chamath,
can you just tell us
Freeberg,
how
go ahead.
how the anointment happened? What do
Yeah,
you
sure.
know about the process after it was Biden said he's dropping out? How coordinated was the appointment of or the anointment of Kamala Harris to the candidacy?
Well, first of all, you guys know this. These are two private corporations. I mean, they are a duopoly, but when you really get down to it, it is a monopoly because they do work together, collude, if you will, to prevent competition. And the real answer to your question, you guys, is going to surprise you, which is I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there are many Democrats that really know. Same is true in the Republican Party. The truth is, the officers of these parties are essentially appointed by either the president or the former president in this case. It's very opaque. It's very siloed. And I'm on a mission beginning tomorrow probably to start exposing how Congress works, how our public square operates, and to start shining some light on this nonsense, you guys, because it is
Dean,
just sick.
would you like to be a part of Doge? Could you give some insight and help the powers that be figure out how to really set things right?
Well, I would love to. I will, Chamath, I will help any president, any administration. I don't care about the politics. I care about the principle of helping this country. You guys have been talking about our debt and the nonsensical elements, the lack of incentives to do the right thing, the perverse incentives that we have across our political spectrum. Of course, I would love to help. I'd be honored to help. I think you guys would too. In fact, one of the great tragedies in America right now are the best and the brightest are not electively running for office because who wants to undergo this nonsense? And we have devalued public service, whether it's police officers or teachers or public officials from city councils and school boards, all the way to running for Congress. And, the old joke, it's so true. And the first day I sat in Congress in 2019, newly sworn in, I'm sitting in the chamber, I'm looking up at the ceiling, I'm in awe, thinking, how did I get here? And then a week later, it's filled, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, how did they get here? And that's the reality of our Congress.
There were some positive elements, I think, of DEI and wokeism when it first emerged. And then I think it went through this metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Do you think that to the extent Donald Trump wins, DEI and wokeism was there was a referendum on it? And if so, what do you think the American people are saying about this whole body of policies that have now infiltrated so many parts of our lives?
It's a good question. And you guys know me. I feel so deeply that we are a country that should ensure that opportunity is afforded to everybody. I believe the way to do that is not to redistribute income or just take care of certain groups, but to raise the foundation for everybody. And yes, I think it's becoming quite evident that this initiative, though good intentioned, has complicated matters, certainly for Democrats. It's turned off a lot of voters. I think border security, I think the wars overseas, and I also think the simple notion of competition and a perception that Democrats don't fundamentally believe in it, which is integral to our country, its foundation, its history, and certainly its future. So, the truth is every party, when they lose, they do a deep dive and an assessment. And certainly I think Democrats are going to do it again. Whether anything will change, probably not.
What should change? If you could change three things in order for the Democratic Party, what do they need to change? Because it is infuriating to me that Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Chamath were all Democrats, were all donators, and they were basically kicked out of the party.
Sure.
And this is just infuriating to me. It feels like they just threw away the entire base of the party or half of it.
Yeah.
What needs to change? What would you change?
Well, first of all, the five of us right now, we come from backgrounds where if our primary competitor was on the ropes, had a plant shut down or had a recall or was struggling, what would you try to do? You would try to use invitation to bring more customers on board, not condemnation to make fun or belittle your competitor. That is essentially what a lot of those $1 billion, by the way, it will be about $1 billion that the Democratic Party will have spent in the last 90 days and lost market share by all, it looks pretty evident to me. So bad strategy. What has to change? It's got to be professionalized. I believe in building an enterprise and a business the same way you'd build a party, with a brand that means something based on principles, recruiting candidates that embody those principles. And at the end of the day, you got to want to win. It's not about who's next in line or whether they check the box or whether they satisfy the far left. This should be about winning. And I'm just afraid my party has lost sight of that fundamental.
But Dean, be specific. Like, do you think that it was because, again, this is a bit of a premortem, so it's a bit early, but if it continues down this path, is it that they started to cater to a minority of very loud, but ultimately people that were just out of touch with the rest of America?
Yeah. No, you know what I think, Chamath? I think the real. I'm not going to lay this all at the feet of the party, if you will. It's people who have considered themselves Democrats for decades, who don't vote in primaries, who don't participate, who don't offer their own names as candidates. So it's not so much that the party is catering to, it's that the party is increasingly represented by. And I don't want to condemn. Look, we live in America. Everybody has different opinions, perspectives, and I respect those. But there's no question the Democratic Party is increasingly represented in elected office by people who are pretty far left of the mainstream. The Republican Party probably is actually closer to the mainstream in America. I do not believe Donald Trump is, his character and otherwise. We don't have to get into it, but I think that's the big problem. The party is increasingly represented by people who are quite different.
Hate capitalism and entrepreneurship to the extent they do. That to me is just so anti-American and frustrating to actually be holding entrepreneurship, venture capital, innovation in contempt. This seems like the stupidest strategy because Americans love new products and services.
It's the foundation.
You've worked on it. It's the foundation of the damn
America.
country.
Of course. You know how I feel, guys.
Entrepreneurship.
You're an entrepreneur. Your father was an entrepreneur. I mean, this is, so.
And to chastise people for success, Dean, that is the thing that irks me the most because it makes me say, if that's the beginning, what's the end?
Yeah, and by the way, that's not universal. Of course, many of us Democrats believe deeply in free enterprise and entrepreneurship. I think the people about whom you're speaking are those who feel they've not benefited from that type of capitalist structure.
It's unfair. It's unfair, right? And this is a big kind of theory I've kind of felt about capitalism. Is if you haven't benefited from the nonlinear returns of capitalism, you feel the system is rigged. Whether you inherit wealth or whether you haven't been able to accumulate it, either case, you feel like it's unfair.
And by the way, the same is true. Now, I would say that's a grievance. On the right, there's also a grievance.
Yes. Yeah.
And you guys know what that is too. That's human nature. I'm not surprised by that. But I like this conversation because I think there can be some common ground there in that, there's no question. I think we can make some minor modifications to our system of capitalism that might reward more people, provide more capital for those that wish to create businesses. I'm deeply fearful about the growing disparities in income and wealth in this country and around the world. A lot of democracies have failed because of it. Right. I believe deeply in business. I mean, I don't think many in my party recognize that those who risk capital and shed sweat and tears to build businesses and pay people and provide livelihoods, they should be rewarded. But I also do understand why so many Americans who are busting their tails on the right and left to put food on the table, and they see the extraordinary extraordinary accumulation of wealth in the hands of so few. I understand that. And it manifests itself a little bit differently on each
Well,
side.
explain it. What does it mean to that person for someone to accumulate that much? What does it mean for
Chamath,
that
here's,
person?
and this is why I said earlier, I believe it's time to really work together to raise the foundation. It's one thing if you live in Sweden and there's a billionaire that lives next door to you. You know, it's not as big of a deal because you have your healthcare covered. You've got great schools, right? You live in beautiful communities that are well taken care of. There's little crime. There's no gun violence. You know, this is a very different country. You see, your people are living next to people of extraordinary means. They can barely pay their own bills. They can't access healthcare. Their schools are crumbling. You know, their parks are not well kept, and there's crime in their neighborhoods. At least that's the perception. That's really, to me, that is the singular issue, and that's why we should focus less on redistribution, more on raising the foundation. And I've changed some perspectives, you guys, on a couple things, healthcare in particular. I came in as a believer in somewhat of the status quo, maybe some type of a public option. But I got to tell you, having traveled the world, looked under the hood, and seen how corrupt this system is, both from the pharma, the insurers.
Well, tell us about that, and what do you think about what Bobby Kennedy has been promised under a Trump administration, and what do you think that means?
Yeah, I spent some time with Bobby, and we had some very thoughtful conversations. There are elements of what he shared with me that I thought were perfectly reasonable. You know, some things that I still do not believe to be truthful, but I understand why others might feel differently. As for what's been promised by Donald Trump, you know, I would prefer, frankly, to see professionals, health professionals, lead our agencies that have organizational experience with multi-billion-dollar organizations. That's the kind of those are the kinds of people, you guys, I think we need in cabinet positions who understand how to manage multi-billion-dollar enterprises. But I don't want to get into personalities and that right now. But I will tell you, having seen how the pharma companies share cash in Washington, how they work against anything natural, whether it's psilocybin, cannabis, other things, where they can't monetize those things that could have great efficacy for so many human challenges. That disappoints me. When I see a business in my backyard, United Health Group employs many of my own constituents, one of the largest in the world, taking 50-some billion dollars off the table that is paid into this healthcare system while people are literally unable to take care of their medical
Dean,
bills and are going bankrupt. These things are troublesome. Maybe for another day, but they're very troublesome.
What are you going to do post all of this?
Well, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning, and the sun is going to rise, and people are going to be freaking out, at least half the country. And I'm going to go on a mission to remind people that where the rubber really hits the road isn't with Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, it's with all of us. And to do my best to keep building bridges and to listen and learn from friends, colleagues, and others who see things differently. And at the end of the day, guys, I'll take a little break, but I can't imagine not dedicating some of my time, treasure, and energy to creating more competition for both parties by recruiting great candidates. And who knows? We'll see what transpires, but I think there's going to be another conversation for all of us to have because the status quo is untenable.
Well, Dean, thanks for putting yourself out there. Thanks for showing the leadership you showed.
It took a lot of courage
and the bravery and the courage to put yourself out there and say what so many knew to be true, but weren't as brave as you were to say it. And clearly you were in the right. So we really appreciate it. And we look forward to it.
It was a true profile in courage, Dean, in the most sincere way possible. You went against the entire party system, which is career ending in that party. And I just want to let people know you are a tremendous asset to the Democratic Party, and they need to understand that individuals like you are rare and that they should covet you and they should move you up in the organization
100%.
lest you join the Republican Party. And this is what keeps happening to these dopey Democrats. They keep losing super high quality people. And I could absolutely see you going to the Republican Party now, because why wouldn't you if the Democratic Party is not going to listen to your obviously sound advice? Go ahead, Chamath, you want to have the final word. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say that
it's infuriating.
You told the truth. And it was obvious to all of us So I just want to say thank you for telling the truth.
Jaw, thank you. And you know, for the kind words, you guys, it's more meaningful than you can imagine. I do not see what transpired as an end to my career. I think actually it's kind of a beginning. And
I
to all
agree.
those watching
I
and
agree.
listening right now,
agree
believe
as
me,
well.
if it doesn't kill you, it does make you stronger. And
Hey,
I do
Gene,
it
we're
1,000
throwing
times again.
We're throwing a party on December 7th. Come on out and hang out with
Come
us.
out for
We'd
the
love
Christmas
to-
party.
Oh my
You
God,
are
come
part
out.
of the family.
You want
A
to come out?
party. We're
Come
gonna
on
party?
stage.
Party.
Yeah.
Come on
come
stage. Come
Ah.
have a party.
Well,
All right.
I'll tell you what. How about will you have another party if we actually pass a budget before the end of the year?
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then I'll bring the wine.
Whatever you
Right.
do, just please don't let them bankrupt the country, man. My
Yeah.
Lord.
Well, guys,
Uh,
I hope you'll have me back and we can talk about some of the
Absolutely.
nitty gritty because I'm
Absolutely.
afraid no matter who wins,
Thank you, Dean.
we're going to go more trillions in debt. Anyway,
I
peace,
agree.
guys, and keep the
Thank
faith.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Hey, there's been a bunch of comments on YouTube. I just want to address them. So my sweater is $9,450.
9,000.
Wow. And I'm drinking 2005 Colgan. 2005
Dean and I,
Colgan.
our suits are worth less
Yes.
combined. Are worth
I'm
less
having a
than
Miller
your
High
sweater.
Life.
But,
Yes,
yeah, sure.
well, yeah, I don't even want to tell you how little my
I'm just
jacket's worth.
trolling. I'm
Is
just
that-
trolling.
Is that
the
a Joseph A.
comments.
Banks?
I'm just trolling. I'm just kidding.
Suit supply.
No, I'm not that fancy, Jason.
No, oh, okay. All right. Well done, Dean. We can't
Philip
wait to see you in
Hellmuth,
person.
Our
right.
crack reporter from Wisconsin is here. Philip, how are the exit polls in Wisconsin?
Where are you,
I
Philip?
mean, I'm
Next
right
up
down
on
the
the
street
live stream.
from, I'm right down the street from Chamath, of course. You know,
Okay,
Right,
guys,
Phil
listen.
Hellmuth is here.
I want to start with the 3 questions
Oh,
that are on
By the way-
everybody's mind.
oh no.
Okay, Phil, I'm going to give you the 3 questions. You can process them and then answer them in any which way you want. Question number 1. How do each of us play poker? Me,
Ooh.
J. Cal,
you go.
Freeberg, and Sachs.
Okay, that's one.
Question number 2.
Here we go.
Who is the best poker player?
Oh, currently or over some period of time?
Bro, it doesn't. The answer is the same.
Okay.
And number 3, the most important question, Philip. As a super close friend of ours, what is the real deal about how you feel about us? Who are we to you?
Ooh.
Philip Jerome Hellmuth, go ahead. Take it.
well,
In any order you like there. Wow.
okay. Let me just say the best poker players, definitely of the 4 of you, is Chamath, and
Okay.
he's won the most money, so that's kind of a no-brainer. Now, Friedberg played a lot of poker. Like he was literally playing at the California card clubs like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Fantastic player. Hasn't been in the game as much as Jason, Chamath, and I. But I'm going to still give number 2 to Sachs. Sachs has this
I
weird
only
thing.
had one losing year in 10, Phil. Come on.
Oh, I listen. I give you a lot of credit. I think you play really well. But we're coming to David Sachs as the second best. He's won more than you have, and he's just like has a knack for the game. He's
That's
like,
true.
he's like da 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 da.
Very good Hold'em player. Yeah.
He kind of finds like he Mr. Magoo's it a little bit. He's about to step off a cliff, and the ace comes and saves him, and he's about to step off. Like he's out there, Mr. Magooing it. But Sachs is like, and then half the time Jason will call him out because he's on the phone playing chess.
With Peter Thiel.
And Jason will be like, Sachs, you're with your friends. Pay attention to us.
I will say that J. Cal actually of all 4 of us has the best live reads. I think J. Cal has the best soul reads.
Thank you.
He makes it's the worst calls because they're not solver approved, but they tend to work. And so they're
I
very
do have the
annoying.
ability to read pretty well, but that's only because Freeberg is always drunk. And I think that is...
It is true. I like to, when I go to Chamath's house, I like to drink the wine. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Like,
it is such
I'm
a
not there
great
to make
angle
money.
shot
Let's
by
be
Chamath.
honest. Like, yeah.
No, definitely not.
So Jason, I'm going to say you're very plucky. Okay, I'm going to you now.
What does that mean? Plucky.
If you, plucky's a good word. Plucky's like, doesn't give
Looking it up right
is not
now.
afraid. You know what I mean? Like stands up to the heat of the people playing against you, stands up to the heat of bullies and anybody else.
Okay.
So we're going to say you're plucky, Jason.
Mhm.
And there it is,
Determined
plucky.
courage in the face of difficulties. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
I
compliment.
learned a new word on the live stream tonight.
You didn't know it was a compliment. You thought I came right out on the insult.
I thought you made up a word.
Being honest.
Plucky's a good word.
It's a great word.
Yeah, it's a big compliment for you. And I think the very simple thing about Jason is if you played 10% less hands, then you'd be all of a sudden
That's true.
would move yourself up. But you like to get involved with, you like to call with the 7-9 suiteds every time you have them and stuff like that. And that's been costly for you. And you could be a little bit more aggressive. Now, I think the fans are very interested in that, but I also think they're interested in the last question. What do I think? Because you guys haven't had a lot of close friends on this podcast.
No.
Ones that can speak to Chamath's generosity. Chamath is the one, he's the glue that pulled us all together. Okay, he's the best poker player too. So you look at it from one point of view, that he just like wins all the time. Not lately, by the way. He's had a rough like 3 or 4 weeks, Jason, since you left. But I will say this: Chamath is so generous. This guy, we go over to his house. True. He has the dealers. He has the wine. He has
cutting me off. She's here. She's cutting me off. She says no more. She just send me a text.
You're so drunk, and there's 35,000 people are watching.
She said,
why do you have to be?
She said, please stop drinking. I say, okay, I finished the rest.
Amore, you are so drunk.
I'm gonna
it's so embarrassing for my family. Everybody in Italy is watching, and you just keep drinking. Stop. You are arrogant and stupid when you drink. Maybe you should have a sparkling, maybe a Pellegrino for you.
The podcast becomes better when Chamath's drinking. So that's to speak to Chamath.
Just a quick election update. So the Republicans are now locked on 49 seats in the Senate.
Wow.
They're leading in 4 of the 5 key races.
Okay.
So it seems like it's a pretty solid lock that the Republicans will end up with the Senate majority at this stage. And Trump, they just Fox News is now putting him at 216, CNN's at 211. 270 to go.
Is it over? I mean,
he's leading in Wisconsin.
Friedberg, I'm going to say this. It's 92% right now at Polymarket.
92%. Yeah, 92%.
Phil,
by the way, just a quick...
Here it is. Polymarket, 91.5.
Just so everyone knows, Polymarket CEO Shane will be joining us in a few minutes.
Phil, so you want to tell people what my prediction? Oh, if you're done answering the question, you want to tell people what
go ahead, Phil. Sorry, I was just giving the quick election update. Go ahead, Phil.
No. We need the election up for sure. Keep those coming. But yeah, I think last time, the worst we saw was about 6-1. And so I think a lot of people, I was watching podcasts, I was watching the numbers shift all day as people were betting. And very interesting to me. It's a very there's going to be people that are going to make 20, 30, $100 million on the selection. There's people that have used the ARB, which is 7%, Chamath, if you can believe that, and 8% sometimes. I mean,
betting on the markets or making
you could bet 100 million one way and then 100 million the other way on the sister site and pick up $7 million. Now, of course, if you bet 100 million, that would probably
you're going to move the market.
Correct. But there's a lot of money to be made arbing. And then I think there's a lot of poker players that made a lot of money last election. This election, not so much. So the minute that I saw it hit 90%, I was like, wow, this just looks like a lock for Trump, because we never did get to 9-1 in the last election. So it looks really bad. It looks like Trump's going to win.
So Phil, what do you think Polymarket, what do you think the folks that got on Polymarket knew or saw?
Is Shane really coming on?
Yeah, he's coming on.
He's coming on. Haralabob's also coming on.
Yeah, okay, don't spoil too many of the guests here. Come on now.
Oh, so we have a story. This is important that I tell the story.
No, but we have a professional poker player coming, Phil. Haralabob is coming, so you might want to stick around because we're literally having one of the great gamblers and poker players coming on, Phil.
Jason just tries to hit me across the face. It's always a smack. I mean,
it's always my standard joke. I'm like, we're having a pro come to the game.
Well, I don't want to do all the talking, but I just want to say that when it comes to Shane, I'll say that, it's very interesting. He was 20 years old. He came to my house during the pandemic.
Seconds to Phil. Here it goes.
Well, no, I mean, I thought it'd be interesting since he's coming on.
Tell the story.
Shane came up with the idea of starting Polymarket because of a bet that Friedberg had with Diego. And I'm not going to reveal the details. They were just betting on which direction the market would go. And then Shane called me and he said, "Oh, I'm going to switch directions. I think this is amazing." So it's true. And now it's recorded here in history, and then, so I thought it was very interesting.
So did you collect 2%?
Did I have a role?
Collect your 2%?
Did I have a role in Polymarket's pivot?
You did. You had a big role in it. Yeah, it was a bet. I told him about a bet that you had against Diego when he was out here visiting me. I brought him to meet David Sachs. I brought him to.
Are you an advisor, Phil?
Scott, no, I'm not.
Did you get advisor?
This is where I blew it, Jay Cal. All I had to do was send in my 30,000, and I would have had 4%. Now I think they raised at 300 million, so that would have been 12 million. I would have preferred if Shane would have called me after he pivoted. But well done to him, and nothing but positivity.
Would you wear a Polymarket hat for 10 bips? Would you wear a Polymarket hat through the World Series of Poker for 10 bips? I can negotiate it for you right now. No.
Now, Jason,
right,
I went to
Pennsylvania, 51.1% Trump, 47.9% Harris, 71% of the votes are in. Virginia, Harris 49.9, Trump 48.3. North Carolina, Harris 48, Trump 51. That looks very close. 86% of the votes in North Carolina, and Georgia looks really hard for Harris to catch up. 48% Harris, 51%.
That's impossible
Trump.
now. Yeah.
90% of the votes in.
93%.
I don't care what counties haven't been counted. It seems like he's on the lock. And at this point, everyone, New York Times has it at 92%. Polymarket's 90 some odd percent. Seems like a lock, right? I mean, this seems to be.
Chamath, did you see this coming? Did you see the election being settled
Well,
by like 8:30?
Chamath said 300 electoral votes. That was his bet, right?
No, but did you see it done by 8:30?
I did not.
What do you think? What do you think this is going to end up? It looks like it could be 290 at this point. Trump.
I predicted it on our stream the other day. And that's the stream where we all connect, this is the stream. This is where basically Shane got the idea to start Polymarket. And I predicted on the stream yesterday, I said, I think Trump is going
easy
to win
Duke of discretion. We don't want to get don't disclose anything.
I think that Trump's going to win huge. And I was wondering why, to me, the polls are so far
Phil,
off.
do you think that my prediction earlier, do you think it's going to be 300, or you think it's going to be a little less, or you think it's going to be more?
I think
I'm doing the math right now. Yeah,
290
something.
The Electoral College estimate right now is 301. Chamath,
yeah, 301.
You might have nailed it. That's a New York Times too. I mean,
Chamath, you and I were both on the same side of that one yesterday.
Chamath, you were at 300, right?
I was at 300. Yeah,
you may have just nailed it. Yeah.
So I'd ask you, Jason. I'll ask you a quick question here.
Yeah, sure.
What is wrong with our polls? Because because like I think there are a lot of really smart people who saw this coming, but then maybe you could argue there are real smart people on the other side. But it seemed kind of obvious to a lot of us. How can the polls be so far off?
I mean, by the way, pretty clear. Phil, did you see the Amish turnout in Pennsylvania?
That was weird. Yeah,
there were miles and miles of Amish in their buggies, all with their Trump banners and their Trump flags, going to vote at the polls in the towns. And when they interviewed them,
they don't vote typically, right?
They said they don't vote, and they did an interview with a guy, and he said in the last 4 years the Democrats have come in and tried to disturb how we operate, how we do business. They tried to shut down some farming practice that was going on at one of the Amish farms. So the Amish all got together, and there were all these big billboards in Pennsylvania and Dutch saying "Go vote for Trump," and they all get together, and 100,000 of them take their buggies and they went to vote. And they're not showing up in any pollster reports. The pollsters aren't calling those guys and saying, because they don't have phones. They can't answer the phone. Like there's a lot and I think a lot of people didn't want to kind of talk about their votes for Trump. In other parts.
Well, it's pretty clear there are
yeah.
issues, Phil, around getting in touch with people to ask them, because people don't have landlines. And if you have a landline, do you really count? And then young people, what I'm most interested to see is, did young men come out and vote, and to what percentage? Because I saw some
stunning numbers I saw some stunning numbers from one state where it said that, and unfortunately I don't know the state, but it said that more men under the age of 30 voted for Trump. And I wonder if that's the Elon effect.
It was very clever what he did with the.
I think it's the Elon effect.
Yeah. It could be that Elon swung the election. Absolutely. I mean, young men don't vote, but young men love Elon, and they love innovation, and they love entrepreneurship. It kind of makes sense.
You love Elon. Did you turn out to vote for Trump?
Well, I mean, I didn't share my vote, but I did tell you I wasn't going to vote for Kamala. So I'll leave it at that.
So wait a minute. That's new news. So you did vote. We can confirm that.
I am not going to tell anybody
hold
what
on.
my vote was.
I understand,
I'm
but
not going to play this
I understand.
game.
No, but you
Yeah.
can confirm that you did vote and you did not vote for.
No,
Kamala.
Chamath,
not gonna
ask him if
confirm
he
anything.
voted in a presidential race, because it's easy to say you voted.
Yeah, did you vote in the presidential?
I will not
race?
reveal because it's too divisive right now.
Because you did not vote for because you didn't vote for either candidate, but you did vote for some other bullshit like stuff in Austin.
I'm gonna
Yes,
leave.
look, you can see
I'm not
it.
gonna tell anybody who I
Oh
voted
my
for. I'm
God.
gonna leave it out. Phil,
you
did you
biggest
vote? Who did
TDS
you
man on
vote
the
for,
planet.
Phil?
You skipped. Wait a minute, Jason. You skipped a once in a generation lifetime opportunity to defend free speech.
I'm not going to share my vote. I'm going to keep it
No,
private.
what I'm
'cause-
asking you is,
yeah.
did you vote for in the presidential election in 2024?
I'm going to say I voted for Marianne Williamson. That's it. I voted
no,
for the
no,
for
I'm
the
asking.
I'm
no,
not
just say, yeah,
telling you anything about my vote.
I don't.
Or
I
if
don't,
I voted, I'm not going to let
okay,
you.
that's my
Well,
question.
you said you voted. You said you voted. Now,
I'm not
right
gonna say
away, I
anything,
caught
Zip.
onto your game
This
that
isn't
you
about
didn't
me.
actually vote in the presidential election. So
I
you're-
am
you're on tape
hoping
saying you voted
that my
5 minutes ago.
friends will bring out Trump's better angels, and I am rooting for him as president, like I did last time. So let's welcome our next guest. Nick, who do we have up next on
Is
the
Kuhn?
All In
No, I think
Spectacular?
Kuhn's joining. Is Kuhn crashing?
He's
Oh,
not-
we're
he's
gonna have
not
a
in the-
professional poker
he's not
player
in the
on?
waiting room yet. I will let you know.
Wait,
when he's
where
on.
is he?
You're telling us we're gonna have a pro who's won? That's like the #1 poker player in the. Honestly, Phil, Jason Kuhn, in terms of greatest poker player alive right now, or you?
Stop,
How would you
Jason.
handicap
Stop.
it?
Stop, Jason.
Jason Kuhn's a fantastic poker player.
tell us.
Fantastic. As is Adrian Mateos. These guys are just really good. They play no limit hold'em only, basically.
Yeah.
But there's a real series of tournaments that, like, I mean, these are two of the greatest poker players in the world, 100%. And no limit hold'em's the hardest game, and that's what they play. I give them all credit. I'm not. There's nothing. Don't read anything. There's no slights.
Phil, I love you.
Well, we love you, Phil, and we appreciate you coming back on the pod. And
Hey, Phil, can you tell everyone about what outfit you're wearing tonight? Is it something that we bought you for your birthday? Because we all spent a shit ton of money buying you an entirely new wardrobe.
which went right in the garbage.
Oh my God.
And every time
He has
you
never
guys,
worn any of it.
you're wearing
guys-
the same tracksuit you've been wearing for 20 years. So
Unbelievable.
You guys spent $100,000 buying me clothing for my birthday in May, and I have this old Aria T-shirt on right now.
Oh
it's
my God.
embarrassing. But
Guys,
I did.
Well, here
I
he
have
is.
been wearing your
Jason
clothes.
Guys,
Kuhn
if
is
it-
here.
if it-
We
if
have
it
an
is true-
actual professional poker player here to
Not
handicap
again.
it. Is it any way, Jason, that Phil Hellmuth can take a selfie with you here on the live stream? Would that be okay? He's always wanted to get a picture with a pro.
As long as I can stand on a stool if I'm standing beside him.
Welcome to the program, Jason Kuhn, a friend of the pod, a friend of one of our besties. What's your take on what we saw with Polymarket, the prediction markets, and what we're seeing right now, Jason, just in terms of handicapping? And what are the sharps? And, because I do know a lot of people in the community who like to wager. We're getting involved in this. What can you tell us about the poker community and just gambling writ large in this election cycle?
Well, I don't have much to offer other than a couple of the one guy who just never seems to be wrong, who's been in my circle for a long time, made an enormous wager on Trump 3 or 4 days ago.
how big?
And
Enormous as in 7, 8, or 9 figures.
I think low 8 maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I mean just these guys are unbelievable. And I don't know, the sentiment this morning was it was feeling like everything was shifting towards Kamala, and then just out of
She's
nowhere.
closing the gap.
boom.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
Iowa survey as well.
Jason, tell us Helmuth's best characteristics for the poker community.
Oh man.
It's delicate.
No, I love talking about Phil, honestly.
You all do.
No, I we all love him. Like I said, I always and I had the most endearing experience with him the first time I ever met him in 2008. We played together, and I was obviously I was taking pictures with him. I was so excited, I was like a 23-year-old kid, and he played great. We both bagged up chips, and the next day I saw him at the Rio, and he said, "Hey kid," and I was like, "Man, this is so cool. Phil Hellmuth is saying hi to me." And he walked up to me, like tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, "I think you learned a lot playing with me yesterday." Which I always loved, and I may have. He might have just been
Oh,
right.
it's so great.
No, he might have just been right.
Wow.
Jason,
I
you're
mean-
the fourth most winningest poker player in history, 60 odd million bucks or something. And Phil mentioned another player that's up there with you and him, this guy, who I love, who I think is a wonderful person. I've only interacted with a little bit, but Adrian Mateos. I mean, is this guy the Tiger Woods right now of poker?
Well, he's just poker is one of those things where you can judge greatness by. There are a lot of metrics, and I think people are really quick to jump on bandwagons of players who have like run really hot for a year or two, and they play an exciting kind of tough version of poker where people see them make like ridiculous plays that work, and people all of a sudden decide that this person's the greatest player in the world, and then you'll see a lot of those types of talents like fizzle out over time. But Mateos is one of those guys who I've seen him since he was a baby. It feels like he's been around forever, and he's still really young, but he's been winning at high stakes for over a decade. And he just absolutely loves the game. He has like just a burning desire in his heart to compete. And he's one of those guys you could give him $1 billion, and I'm sure he would still just show up and grind like a 5K tournament. And I think the other guy that's younger and in this generation that's similar to that is Chidwick. I think the British Stephen Chidwick he just loves to play the game. So I think Mateos and him both have like the acumen and the longevity of their careers, but they just want to play. They don't really care where they're at. They just want to compete and they want to play against the best players. And I have a ton of respect for that. And back to the Hellmuth question is, I think that's one of the reasons that, I know everybody loves picking on Phil, but the guy is like, he literally won the main event whenever I was 3 years old, and he's still just showing up and smashing people. And it's like, I get it. Like he has a good sense of humor and you guys like poking at him, but honestly, he's earned his stripes. And I think that guys like Hellmuth and Seidel and Granu,
I'll tell you,
I
I think
have
I've
so
told
much
you,
respect for those guys.
I've told you this story before, Jason, but for the rest of the internet, Helmuth called me, must have been 15 years ago, and he said, "Hey, you want to figure out a deal where we'll play, I'll play a bunch of tournaments, we'll share the upside, blah blah blah." Stake me, and I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't even know what that meant. And he's like, don't worry. At the most, you're exposed 75 or 80K. I thought, okay.
Yeah, I'm heading on.
So I did the deal. I never even wired Helmuth the money. He won 3 million straight. I've never had a run in poker like this in my life. It had nothing to do with my own play. It was just Helmuth. And the crazy thing was Helmuth he was one call away from beating Brian Rass in the 50K PPC.
Players.
And it was just so heartbreaking. But it's been an incredible ride. And Helmuth, you've been a joy to.
Let me come back to Chamath on that. So Chamath's so classy, right? So guys, listen, he never had to put any money up, luckily, because I just started winning right away. And so now the last tournament I cashed for like 1.1 million, and I would go to give him as whatever 50% of all the money that we've won that like month or two. And he says to me, Phil, whatever you made me, I'm just going to give it to you in my fund. You worked for me. Now I'm going to work for you. So
you're an LP. Yum, yum.
I handed him like 350, 400, whatever it is. And he right away, there was paperwork and I owned a piece of the fund. In that fund was Slack. So,
yum, yum.
And then eventually Bitcoin. So Chamath's generosity, like really didn't owe me anything and just said, Phil, here's a pure gift. And, I mean, that was a stunning moment for me.
Let me ask Kuhn a question.
So much class.
Guys, we've got Shane from Polymarket.
One second, Shane. We'll get you in here. But Kuhn, it's a very important question.
Okay.
Which group of individuals are more annoying to a steady guy like you? These European guys who take like 18 minutes to make a bet and they pick up their chips like robots, or Phil Hellmuth, like when he throws some, the radio pack at the table, which is more for a guy like you who's like a steady James Bond kind of guy.
I love it when Hellmuth rages. I love it. It makes me I appreciate it so much. And people that don't like when these guys go off, I think they're a little soft. I enjoy it.
Is
Keep
it
the pace
real or
fast.
not? In your estimation, is Phil putting on a show because he's a showman, or is it real? This is what everybody wants to know.
I think it's as real as it gets. I think sometimes he's very smart. He's very smart, and he can play to, he'll feel something and act, but then he'll realize that people think it's hilarious, and he'll put a little extra pizzazz on there. But I think it's as real as it gets.
All right. There's been a lot of poker talk. We got to get back to the election. But
Ask
with us,
Shane what the numbers are at Polymarket right now.
all right, Shane Copeland is here. He's the founder of Polymarket. Tell us what's going on your side, Shane.
Oh my God, how liquid is it? How liquid is it, Shane? Or is there a lot of trading happening?
Yeah, I mean, today I think a couple $100 million, which is a lot. By, I guess when you think about leveraged assets, it doesn't seem like a lot, but for prediction markets, it's probably an all-time high, I guess, in history, and it's at 94% for Trump. And thanks for having me on.
So Shane, can you explain to us when does it diverge from just betting towards this is like very accurate bottoms up where like the sharps are arbing and coming to your site because it just makes
I think the important thing is to just define what an arb is, right? Like an arbitrage is if there's multiple different markets and you can buy two sides of the same position risk-free. An arb is not you think or some other person says that the value of something, the true value is higher than what the market is. Because then, if someone's saying that, why are they not buying it up if they think that it's a value bet, so to speak? So the thing about Polymarket is that in terms of global market share, it's like 90-something% of the global market. So very rarely is there another more liquid venue for people to arb Polymarket with. When there is, obviously people go in and they look at price discovery venues external to Polymarket. The
Shane,
exciting thing about
you had a lot of stuff recently in the press. There was like this big French whale on the site.
He doesn't look so stupid now, does he?
Yeah, and did you ever do you guys talk to them? Are you allowed to talk to these folks that are out there? Do you know anything more about this person?
I mean, for him, we went through a compliance process because he was a big trader. We KYC'd him and such. And while the media was running with this story and they spun it so many different ways, it was just some really wealthy ex-finance French guy. And it's really difficult to take at face value any of the media narratives, right? Where it's like, they try and paint him as kind of having this fundamental misunderstanding of how polls work, but he's saying that he has different theories of thinking about it. But you got to commend him for putting his money where his mouth is. The thing that irks me the most about maybe the hundreds of pieces where they were trying to kind of discredit the accuracy of the free market because someone made a big trade is that Polymarket is peer-to-peer. We're not the house, so to speak, right? We're a venue. And on the other side of every Trump trade, when he's getting Trump exposure, is someone taking Kamala exposure. It's someone on the other side. So the idea that someone is putting a lot of money on Trump and therefore it's skewing the odds, I think it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what Polymarket is, where people assume it's the percentage of bets or it's the percentage of capital on each outcome. When in reality, what it is it's market price at that moment for the outcome shares of Kamala or Trump or yes or no. And the interesting thing is when each outcome share pays out $1, the value of the outcome share is basically derived from the probability of the outcome. So whatever market price is, if you really have a liquid market with, disparate, diverse group of market participants, which is sort of what we have the most of anything that exists today, you get price discovery where the anecdotal benefit, but for me, what was always the most exciting thing was that anyone as an onlooker could just go and look at the prices and see how it changes over time. And while that's a lot of gnarly, nerdy market stuff, what we saw and what we've seen now as we're kind of, something that's entered the zeitgeist is that it's really intuitive and digestible for people to see, oh, it's 94% likely, and like this is how it trended over time, and this is how it responded to new information. So in a weird way, we always were looking at what we were building as like an alternative news source. And that's why I always called it an information markets platform. And it in some funny way, it feels like a lot of that is coming to fruition today of all days, where there was a lot of, I would just say, like criticism in the press, a lot of memes that were about discrediting the accuracy of the free market, because it's based in stable coins. So they say it's crypto, and they say that it's a French whale who's going and putting too much money. But like those are all characteristics of a free market, right? It's still denominated in USDC, so that people can understand the value. And
tell us about the swing states. I mean, I think that is super interesting. People are watching them right now, and how those markets emerge and how much liquidity they have in them. I guess that you're learning as well, right? How many markets you can put into one betting category, like the election here.
Well, at the end of the day, any outcome, you're going to have an order book, you're going to have outcome shares. So the market structure is basically one size fits all as it currently stands. And what I think is exciting is, like, in the other room, everyone's watching like NFL Red Zone, but for news. And it, like, they're still telling people it's like neck and neck, and it's a toss up, and it could go either way, and it's super close. And the markets tell an entirely different story. It's very difficult if you don't understand politics, like me and a lot of other people. I'm not a political scientist, to go in, basically get dangled along and get told one thing or another thing, and fall into an entertainment trap. Whereas what the market's doing is there's tons of people who, with varying levels of conviction, are going and trading based on how they're parsing the information that's coming out. And what's cool about that is, they're basically filtering for what's necessary, and they're answering the question that's most important to people, which is what's likely to happen. Is Michigan going to go for Kamala, right? Like, and you're able to go and look at it in real time and look at it in this graph. And that's just a better way to understand what's likely to happen in the future than just seeing them count votes and it being murky of which town, which area code is coming in first. And then the second thing is, like, these pollsters where it's like you have to trust how good they are, and then they give you this roundabout answer for what their odds are.
Shane, let me just ask you a question about that exactly, because I've been trying to get to the bottom of that. Why are the pollsters off? There's no one on the planet who's on this more than you. Right now, you're on the cutting edge. You're running a site that does exactly this. Do you have any insight for us? We all want to know.
Well,
why are
my
the
question is,
so
why would a
wildly far
pollster be
off?
right? Why would a pollster be right? It's just some person trying to go and vie for attention, and they have no skin in the game. They have no consequence for being wrong. And people now are telling me, like, well, this pollster is saying this percentage right now, but Polymarket's saying 80 something. And it's like, the reality is, after today, if things continue to trend in the direction that they're trending, like, the idea of trusting an individual pollster and taking their word for it is now antiquated technology. Like, Polymarket has arrived. It has proven itself to be a 10x plus improvement, and the innovator's dilemma will inevitably run its course.
Kuhn, what are your thoughts on these prediction markets and how they're operating now, and the impact they might have on society, and how we look at assessing risk and understanding the world better?
I mean, it's just very obvious. If people are putting their money where their mouth is, that's always where the data. That's always where, if I'm betting, if I'm taking information, I'm gonna bet on the people that are actually, like he said, have skin in the game. By the way, Trump just won North Carolina, and he's apparently minus 450 to win the popular vote.
Yeah, this is what I'll say is,
how's that even possible?
So
go on
CNN has not called it. So they're at 50.6% Trump with 87% of the vote in. This is, like, I think worth noting. Kamala Harris 47.9%. You go over to Fox News.
We're looking at all these different percentage amount of votes. What do we want to know? We want to know who's going to win which state. We want to know who's going to win the election, who's going to win the Electoral College. For the sake of it, go look at the CNN and Fox maps and look at the Polymarket map right now. Go to Polymarket.
Are you serious, Shane, that CNN's that far off, Shane and Friedberg?
I mean,
No,
guys,
it's not that it's far off. It's a different data source. It's saying the percentage of votes, and what we're showing is the percentage likelihood.
Trump is
So
almost up by 200,000 votes in Pennsylvania with 76%
the number of votes doesn't
reported.
matter. You just want to know who's going to win. You don't, you don't understand the methodology of how they're counting. So all I'll say is this will be imprinted on the internet forever. Look at the CNN map where we are. It's 11:29 p.m.
Hey guys, I got to break in here. I have former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, with us.
Oh, great.
Oh, breaking in. Here we go. Hey, Newt. What's your assessment, Mr. Gingrich, of what's happened tonight, and what should the American people take from what looks like it's going to be a resounding victory for Trump?
Started the evening moderately optimistic. About a half hour ago, I decided I was optimistic as I watched various numbers begin to develop state by state. I think this will be seen in the long run as one of the great historic turning points in American history. And I really feel sort of like being in the middle of a historic moment. I mean, it's hard to explain. I've been involved in government and politics since August of 1958. And even with Reagan or our contract with America, I don't think I ever had a feeling like, this guy's campaigned for 9 years. The establishment from day one has done everything they could to destroy him. And he survived not because of him. I think this is the greatest misunderstanding of the news media. He survived because over half the American people refused to let him go down. And so whatever was done to him, millions of Americans said, we're with you. And I think he has become literally in a league that, you could take Washington and Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, Lincoln, maybe FDR. Very few people in the history of America have come to personify for tens of millions of people a movement they believe in. It's much more than this. Is not about Trump. This is where his genius in coming up with MAGA. He didn't come up with vote for Trump. He came up with make America great again. Well, that is pretty astonishing.
Newt, what do you think it means? There's a reasonable chance that President Trump wins the popular vote.
I'm sorry, what?
There's a decent chance that President Trump could win the popular vote as well as the presidency, not just the Electoral College, but the popular vote.
First of all, I think if he does win the popular vote, it will be an enormous increase in his psychological ability to lead the country.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I'd point out to everybody that the places where the Democrats run up their huge majorities, California, Illinois, New York, are places where, frankly, we don't spend any money competing. If we were to actually put real resources into those 3 states, Trump would be virtually guaranteed to win the popular vote. And I think tonight, just looking at what I've seen so far, there's a pretty good chance he's going to win the popular vote. Yeah. If that happens, then he has the same moral authority that Ronald Reagan had in 1981 when he won the largest electoral college vote against an incumbent president in American history.
You've talked a lot about, you've been in government for a very long time. Can you please give us your interpretation of what it means to tear down the deep state and the administrative state, and what Donald Trump wants to do, and whether there's going to be a good outcome there at the end of that?
Sure. I mean, the most simple way to say it is that there are millions of bureaucrats, lobbyists, reporters, academics who collectively believe, and the truth is that Scott Rasmussen has done brilliant work on this in a series of things called 1%, where he talks about the values of the people who think of themselves as the top 1%. And these people believe that they have the legitimate right to impose on the rest of us whatever they believe this week or next week or last week. That extraordinary, arrogant belief. I'll tell you my favorite current story is the guy who had a squirrel and a raccoon in New York State and suddenly had, I think it was 7 law enforcement officers attack his house as though he were a drug cartel dealer, seize his 2 animals, and then kill him. Now, I would ask you, how sick does a system have to be to send 7 people out to kill a squirrel? I know that may sound silly at one level, but I thought it was symbolically the perfect example of how sick the system's become.
It's so true. It's so true.
All right. With us as well, with Newt Gingrich, is Steve Bannon, the architect of the MAGA movement. Welcome to the program, Steve Bannon.
Can you hear us?
Thanks, guys, for having me. Appreciate it.
Steve,
Yes,
what is your
can we kick this
takeaway?
off? Can we kick this off? We had a similar framing for folks, which I think it would be great for you because, as Jason said, you were the architect of a lot of this in 2016. But what do you think, if you had to summarize, was the ideology, not the party, the ideology that was on referendum today?
The ideology is you've got to put the American people, and particularly working class and lower middle class people, first. This is just not an America First movement. This is American citizens first. And I think the pattern recognition that's most important is Hispanic families and Hispanic men, and particularly African American men in places like Philadelphia and Detroit. I mean, 25, it looks like 25% of African American men could vote for President Trump. More importantly, I think a majority of eligible voters that are Black are not going to vote for Kamala Harris. They're fed up. This is a transformational night. I mean, look, we've David Sachs, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Danica Patrick, Nicole Shanahan. You've had these group of people come together that represent a new voice in America. But most importantly, tonight, it's the working class of the country has spoken. You got to remember this grassroots effort we've gone through the last couple of years to change the architecture of the Republican Party by registrations was all done by bootstrap. And then at the end, the get out the vote effort, the Trump campaign didn't even have the money. This was Elon Musk. It was Miriam Adelson, it was others, but that all depended upon a massive grassroots turnout to support that get out the vote movement. Then the election integrity was also all working class people that came up through the precinct strategy. So for the last 4 years, when President Trump was basically turned out by the political class, including the Republican Party and the Republican establishment, we've rebuilt a populist nationalist really party here that went in victory tonight. And so it's pretty extraordinary. We're going to add seats to the Senate and take the Senate. I think we'll add a couple of seats to the House. President Trump will be in the White House. Obviously, the big fight's going to start. But if you look at MSNBC and CNN, all they're talking about is the Electoral College. They're talking about they're whining about all these structural issues and not getting to the point that they have failed to address working class people's concern that economic opportunities are going away, that the schools are worse, the country's worse, and quite frankly, with these forever wars throughout the world, their sons and daughters are still serving.
So their answer to that was maybe painted with the brush of DEI and wokeism. What does it mean about those things? And were there any parts of that made sense?
I think the DEI, listen, to have more participation in our society, particularly by working class, I think is a great thing. DEI was another top down from kind of the intellectual elite or the credential class, kind of jammed down into people. Not just the white working class, but the Hispanic and Black working class rejected it out of hand also, particularly men who they kind of condemn as part of the patriarchy. right? The Handmaid's Tale. So yes, the cultural aspects of this, I think, were kind of beneath it. But I strongly believe it is the economic that really is the most important. You remember the invasion of the 10 or 15 million that were invited in by Harris and Biden were really to kind of drive down wage inflation in unskilled workers. And if you in those communities, I had the opportunity in my 4 months in federal prison to really spend a lot of time as a teacher and kind of listening to young African American and Hispanic nonviolent drug dealers talk about their communities, talk about their families, talk about the lack of opportunity, the thing that drove them to sell drugs. And these guys are very smart, and they detest Kamala Harris because they think she's in back of mass incarceration and she will not deport these criminals. So the cultural aspects I think had a lot to do with this, particularly the men saying, hey, we're not along with this DI. But I think the more important are the economic issues. And those are the issues I think are going to be the most important for us to address when we hit the debt ceiling in early January, when the tax cuts revert, and also we have to deal with this budget when the government runs out of money. President Trump and his finance team have a huge order to kind of match in January, February, March of next year.
Do you worry at all about what the deep state or the administrative does to try to push back between now and Jan 20th or even beyond? And do you have any advice for the incoming administration on what to do?
I think you have to be absolutely relentless. Look, I think look, I come out of the military as a naval officer for 8 years, served 4 years at sea, and 4 years in the Pentagon as the aide to the chief of naval operations. So, and my daughter went to West Point. So it's not like I'm kind of shrinking violet, but the military industrial intelligence, legal law enforcement complex is out of control. It has to be deconstructed. President Trump's going to need some very tough people in DOJ, very tough people to really work through what's going on with the FBI, the CIA. He's got to hit it. He's got to hit deck plates, run it, and it has to be done. It has to be done in front of the American people. You can't adjudicate this. You can't start to deconstruct the more radical rogue element of the administrative state unless I think you have full transparency. The American people have to know what you're doing. They have to see what went on. I think there has to be major investigations, but they're definitely going to try to do so. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Look what they've tried to do to President Trump to date. Remember, President Trump still goes for his sentencing on the 26th of November, just 3 weeks from today. And Mershon's no doubt to me, Mershon's going to give him a prison sentence. So we still got a lot, we got a lot to get over. But yes, I think the administrative state's rogue element, the deep state, will be all over trying to thwart President Trump, ending the American empire and getting back to America first.
What are your thoughts, Steve, on who Trump should surround himself with if he does win tonight, which it's obviously looking like he's going to? Who should he surround himself with? Because the group of people he surrounded himself with the first time seem to have all thrown him under the bus, said he's, an authoritarian, he cannot be trusted, his instincts are terrible. It's one of these things where when we're watching this, we're wondering who's correct. You tell us. You're the person who was there. You have had an on and off again relationship with Trump. What is your relationship with him now, and how should Trump build his cabinet and the group around him for this Trump 2.0 term?
I have an excellent relationship with him because I think I'm the only major person that really had his back from, the Boston Herald has a story from 15 February of 2021 after he'd been in Mar-a-Lago where I laid out the entire strategy of his comeback to win the nomination for the Republican Party and then win the White House. Our show has been the bulwark of President Trump and the fighter for him, not just in the stolen 2020 election, which was stolen, but going forward. And I think he knows that we're totally simpatico when it comes to policies. Look, to me, it's very straightforward. You have to adopt Tecumseh Sherman's A Simple Plan Aggressively Executed. I think he needs to get a handful of people around him, particularly White House counsel, chief of staff, who he's going to put in DOJ, the National Security Advisor, NEC, in the White House, and really have a plan to attack our financial and economic problems, which I think have to be addressed first, because I think the spending, the debt, how the jets being financed short term is a ticking time bomb national security problem that has not been addressed. It was not debated in this campaign. That has to be addressed along with the deportations, and then to really start to think about these global wars and what we're going to do to really solve the problem with the Chinese Communist Party, which to me is the railhead of all of it. That's going to take a core team that believes in these verticals that believe President Trump's kind of core beliefs. That's what he needs.
And you believe he should start deporting millions of illegal immigrants. That is something you're in favor of. Yeah.
All 15 million. I'm adamant
How
about it.
would
You can start with the, quote unquote the insane asylums. You can start with the criminals. You can do all that, but eventually, because here's the thing: you either have a country or you don't. This is crushing opportunities for African American and Hispanic men. This is what that vote was about. These people understand their communities are being destroyed by the Federal Reserve and the Treasury were up front that they wanted to take down wage inflation, and they were going to go to the unskilled laborers to do it. And they bragged about it. They brag about it all the time. And now the Congressional Budget Office is telling us that if you deport them, you're going to knock off 1% of GDP. Well, I don't care about knocking off 1% of GDP. These people are taking opportunities from American citizens, and we have to start putting American citizens first. And if you show the Black community and if you show the Hispanic citizens in this country that we got their back, and we're not going to let a new group of 10 to 15 million people come in the country and really get preferred services to them. If you can show those people, they will have your back politically for the next 50 years. It's going to be tough. You have to work. You can't do it inhumanely. You can't do it just throw it out there. It has to be very logically thought through. You have to get the countries in partnership with you, but they have to go back. If we don't draw the line in the sand and say, no, this was done to reform the Democratic Party and bring votes in, and also to help, quite frankly, the guys on Wall Street that wanted lower wages, the corporatists that wanted lower wages. You got to take this on. This is going to be at the top of the agenda for the populist movement starting in the beginning of the year.
Steve, some people tried to put January 6th on as part of this vote. And I think some people still feel very strongly about January 6th. What is your summation about what happened and why it does or doesn't matter anymore in the history of American politics?
Well, I think it matters very much. I listen, you've got to take care of the financial, the geopolitical. We have so many issues that have to be dealt with: the deportations, the building of the wall, but a dual track. And you talk about the deep state. We have to go back and I think reconvene the J6 committee, and it's got to be done dual track. It's not going to be a number one priority, but the House has got to get into this thing. We have to investigate the FBI. You have to investigate what happened on January 6th. You have to investigate what happened in the 2020 election. Until we adjudicate that publicly, where the Democrats have a ranking member and minority counsel, the way this committee should have been done the first time, which one of the reasons I went to prison, because I said this committee was completely fraudulent. We have to do this, or we're not going to have a country. Yes, I know some people don't want to talk about it, but this gets to the core of who and what we are, and also how the deep state element kind of took it over. You have to get to the bottom of this, not just the people that have been put in prison, the 1,000 people have been put in prison, but exactly what happened. What was the chain of command? Why were President Trump's orders not followed? And it's not that we're going to go back and pick a scab, but through the House Judiciary Committee or an IG investigation, there are ways to investigate. We have many different apparatuses that can investigate, but I think it has to be done to get to the bottom of exactly what happened and to make sure and guarantee it never happens again with either political party for the future of the country.
We know you have to go, Steve. Final question. Have you spoken to Trump in the last couple of weeks, and has he offered you some official role in the new administration?
I talked to President Trump. He's the first guy I really talked to when I left prison. And we had a good chat. We stay in pretty good communication. I have absolutely zero. President Trump, look, the War Room is the media platform for the activist base of the MAGA movement. We're not really entertainment. Our audience are very focused. They're the people that went out and did the get out the vote. They're the ones that did the election integrity, the precinct strategy. These are the most active of all the Trump followers, and that's what the show is. My best, highest and best use is doing that. I'm not a staffer. I gave 1 year of my life from August 15th to August 15th for 1 year. I have no interest in going to the White House. And quite frankly, I'm much better for President Trump to support him and his policies, being on the outside and continue to do war room.
All right. Thank you, Steve Bannon, for joining us on this historic night, November 5th, 2024. It looks like a sweep for Trump is emerging. Freeberg, you want to give us the latest update? We'll drop you off, Steve. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thank you, Steve.
That was fascinating.
That was awesome.
Shane, and he literally wants to deport 15 million people. He's dead serious about that. Yeah, I don't know
we'll
that
do
that's
the quick
but give us an
website
update
roundup.
on where we're at here. I think people are having panic attacks right now after hearing that.
But on CNN, they're showing 220. They're still not calling. They called North Carolina. CNN called North Carolina since we last did the update. They're going to call Georgia.
My election team called that about 15 minutes ago, just to be.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, Shane's election team. This is the key point. Shane's election team called that a couple days ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, forget about a couple of days ago. Only thing I was going to say, and I know Newt is a political VIP, and I'm sure he had a lot of gems to drop. But look at the Polymarket map. Look at this CNN or Fox map. Look at the colors. Come back to them in a few days and see what was more useful at this moment in time as an information source.
Yeah. Who
really all there is to it. Yeah, and
data first?
It would have been better a few hours ago, but even now, and here we are.
I love the setup. You guys,
the news stations
the setup here is awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, look, it's like the most downloaded app in the world today, or something like on the whole app store. It's crazy. But like people are sitting in another room. They're still consuming legacy media that's telling them, showing them ads, keeping them glued in. They're going to go to sleep. They're not going to know what's likely to happen. Things are being counted in disingenuous ways at worst, or at best in ways that are designed to just kind of be cliffhangers, like you're going and architecting a thriller movie. Whereas with Polymarket, it's just people competing. It's incentive compatible. It's free market driven. And you see the likelihoods, which is the exact thing that you want.
One of the only critiques I've heard about prediction markets right now, and specifically Polymarket, is it's not yet for Americans. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why that is, and is that going to change? Because there are some other folks who are starting to operate in the U.S. market, and obviously wagering on sports is available. So tell us about that.
Right. I started Polymarket, which I think there was some chatter with Phil, or like some of the origin stories.
No, Phil told us he started it with you. Yeah, he's the co-founder.
I'm joking. I can't really attest to any of that. I'm sure, he's an excellent storyteller. But
we know. We know. We've heard the stories.
Yeah. And I started Polymarket with no money, and I love building things. And I really did believe in a lot of the academic literature around markets being the best way to go and aggregate information. And I've learned a lot along the way. I'm really blessed and really grateful that, we've built something that's made the impact that it has. And I still think it's early, but, and I know our best days are yet to come, but, like some people lead with product, some people lead with doing things and, navigating, system and things like that. And I think that we never really had the luxury of being able to wait and have the money to be able to wait and to lobby, et cetera. So we just had to go build the right thing. We found out how to do it in a compliant way early on. And that was, its own journey and learning lesson. And, here we are today, and we've gotten to a good enough point with traction where we have the leverage and we have the capital to be able to go. And luckily, there's been people who've taken on a very noble fight regarding legalizing prediction markets in the States, and that's incredible. And I'm happy for them. It's amazing for the entire space. It's amazing for Polymarket as, the largest global player. And the intent is to use some of our
What's interesting from a news perspective, Shane, like we might have a point of view in our podcast where we talk about something like which which of the hyperscalers are going to have the biggest cloud business, and standing up a market to track who's got the because suddenly Google's revenue growth took off in cloud this quarter and Microsoft was lagging, and so the race is on, and everyone thought that the game was over. Turns out it's not. But I'd love to kind of turn that into a story, because part of what you can do with Polymarket is create a story, a news story that you can start to follow. You can create a bit of a narrative, and because you're trading it, you're creating probabilities around it. You're seeing the value of it.
Yeah, I mean, the kernel of like insight that is, what Polymarket is predicated on is like, one, you should be able to create markets for on anything and everything within reason. And the sort of the two downstream effects of that are, one, there's a new format of like, you have an opinion, you can put your money where your mouth is. Going back to why you guys said pollsters aren't good. Why would they be good? They're simply just pundits, entertainers. There's no reason for them to be able to tell the future better than the next guy. Right. And if they really were able to, then they should monetize their efforts by participating in markets.
Right.
And monetize their special foretelling skills. And I think that tonight probably puts a nail in the coffin for that way of thinking and reliance on just like this legacy pollster model.
Shane, let's play conspiracy theorist for a second. There was a person, she put out an Iowa poll less than 24 hours ago that showed Kamala winning Iowa. It didn't happen. In fact, Donald Trump won by 14% in Iowa. Is that her engaging in misinformation? Is that her doing a bad job?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of the fact that Polymarket exists is I don't need to give a fuck about what she's saying. Like, everyone on Twitter is like, I'm not a big tweeter. I don't think anyone should care about what I have to say about this stuff because I don't know what I'm talking about. But okay, so the Seltzer poll goes live, and you have the smartest people and the most stupid people giving you an array of different opinions. Some people are saying this changes everything. You're going to remember the moment where you saw this poll. It's going to be etched in your memory forever. And other people are saying this is fake. She's got one psyop on her way out, something conspiratorial. And it's just like, what is the real impact on the thing that matters? The thing that matters is who's going to win the various different races. Because there's the Iowa race, and then some people would say, well, Iowa has is more sensitive to abortion, and that's why I could swing a different way. But then other people are saying that you can extrapolate from Iowa, different states and different trends. And when you have a market, you don't need to pay attention to all that shit, all that noise. Like, you can just say, okay, well, there's tons of people competing over all available information, as well as searching for new information to go and try price this as well as possible. And this is the most liquid market. This is what's available. And I'm going to go and look at this and derive my understanding of what's likely to happen from that, as opposed to trying to go and assign this significance to, one, some experts polling, but two, just, comb through all these different opinions on X as much as it's
Shane,
a platform we spend all our time on.
What do you think happened?
And come to your own conclusions about the different opinions, because no one can do that. All you do is you just lean into confirmation bias. You just look for things that validate what you're already looking for. And
introduce our new guest,
Shane, explain what happened though in the market where you had Trump meaningfully ahead, and it looked like people were trying to trade him up to like 69.9, but then there was a collapse at one point. What do you think happened there in the market? And then, by the way, just before you start, let's just introduce friend of the pod, Haralabos Vulgaris, Haralabob, as our friends know him. We know him through many ways, but he owns a great soccer team in Spain.
Castellon.
He is a phenomenal basketball bettor, a phenomenal poker player, very smart thinker. So, Haralabob, welcome to the podcast.
He's good at Twitter too. He's pretty good on the Twitter.
Great at Twitter.
He's pretty good.
But sorry, Shane. But
continue, Shane.
Yeah. So Shane,
when you have a primary market, a primary venue for price discovery, like Polymarket is, the market initially took impact to this like seltzer poll. And then over the course of the next few hours or 24 hours, you know, there was like the market interprets and ingests that information, and maybe there's some frenzy and volatility to start, and then it finds equilibrium. And you know, I don't claim to be, and nor should I be, the person who can go in, have asymmetric intel on what the market is saying, right? Like I just built the website, you know. The cool thing is that it's transparent and you can go and see who's participating, who's taking what positions. There's a comment section. It's one of the most like, it's a new format of like social networking where not only are you communicating via text, but it shows your position and what you bought it at in the comment. So, you know, some people want to go and say, well, this guy put down $250,000. Maybe he actually has something interesting to say. And I should take it with more, you know, less of a grain of salt and place more emphasis on it. But ultimately the market, when I think back at how, and you know, things are not over yet, but like when I think back at this cycle, I think the market functioned perfectly. I think this is how markets are supposed to function. I think that despite all this sort of misinformation and hit pieces that were put out about what is truly the closest thing we have to a free market for events, it ended up being by far and away the best information source and the best way to follow who is likely to win something that's really important this election. So I'm proud of that, and I can't really think of many times where I've been able to say that. I'm always quite cautious and skeptical, and just want to be able to have like true data to validate that something worked. And I think that, you know, if things continue to head in this direction, this is a big win for Polymarket, and as the sort of disruptor for legacy media when it comes to trying to understand what's likely to happen in the future.
Well, Shane,
let's thank Shane for coming on.
Shane, we want to say thanks.
Thank you.
I really want to say it'd be great to kind of get you back on at some point in the future and talk about ways that we could kind of list some stuff on the market.
No,
So,
all of the stuff that we do, like the end of the year markets and stuff, I actually think what we should do, J. Cal, maybe we can ask Nick to do this, but the bets that we made last year,
yeah, make markets out of them.
Can we turn them into markets now?
We definitely can. The thing that, you know, so it's going to be exciting for people to be able to bet their beliefs if they have an opinion. But the thing that's even more exciting is to be able to look at the odds and how they trend over time, and be able to go and get a fact check on.
Shane, I'm going to win all of these, but yes. It's
okay.
Right. That's whatever.
I'm sure.
All I heard, Shane, all I heard was blah, blah, blah. I'm going to win.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for having me on.
No, but seriously, Shane, can we get your help getting your team to look at our end of year predictions episodes?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's make those bets.
Right, we'll do that.
Let's do
Thanks,
it.
Bro.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks,
Shane.
The final thing I'll say is anyone, thank you so much. Final thing says anyone who's listening who has ideas as well, just DM Polymarket on Twitter with your ideas.
Awesome.
And there'll be an announcement regarding that soon, which we're really excited about.
Thanks, bro.
Guys,
take care.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for
Have
coming.
a great night.
I want to do truth or false with Haralabob before we ask him a question. Okay. Haralabob, true or false? True or false?
I know where this is going.
You have made more than 100 million, less than $1 billion betting basketball.
Oh, no, definitely true. Yeah, definitely true. Less than $1 billion for sure.
True or false? Same question on crypto.
I mean, I don't even. I'm just getting my feet wet. I'm just getting my feet wet in the imaginary internet money streets. So for me, it's not real quite yet.
Haralabob, you were the assistant GM of the Dallas Mavericks under Mark Cuban.
No, it's false. I was like the de facto GM, I think. If you really want to.
Okay, let's kick it off. Tell us about Mark Cuban and tell us about what you thought when he stepped into the political Dragon's Den.
It was kind of shocking to me, to be honest, mostly because I had a lot of people who thought that I had like some insight as to like what he was going through. Like the number one thing people were asking me was like, yo, is Mark compromised or something? Which of course I don't think that was the case, but I don't know.
Yeah. Hold on. Sorry. Hold on. Let's just double click into that. There is a theme, which was that like all of the people that went to Epstein Island or were involved in the Diddy parties had to vote Democratic. Did you?
Yeah, there's that Venn diagram.
J-Lo?
Yeah. Did you think that was real or that was just like a?
Not in Mark's case, like just to be clear, because I don't know anything about that at all, and I wasn't But with the other people, 100%. I mean, I really don't think it's like,
100% J-Lo.
I mean, come on, give me a break. Like, it was absurd. It was like Usher. It was like Usher went from like, oh, I don't really want to talk about politics too much, you know, whatever. And then next thing you know, he's on stage.
Oh my God.
But the part that's interesting though is like, it's funny, but it's actually not funny because
it's dark.
It's very dark.
Super
dark.
Yeah,
I mean,
dark.
if
you want to go, I'm
Diddy
not saying that it's true, but if you want to think it's true, it's a very dark truth.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the J-Lo thing was just absurd. It's just like, okay, yeah, the Puerto Rico thing happened, so let's get J-Lo. But then she like, that was like the best acting job she did since Gleek or whatever that movie was. I mean, it was like unbelievable performance.
Got robbed of that Oscar.
I was like, what is she's like almost in tears. I don't know. The whole election to me was just odd because I think a lot of people thought that I was like, I had like Trump. I was like, I got curved to the right and I was like, I went down this rabbit hole and I was radicalized, but it was just like, I've always been this person. Like the only time I wasn't that person was the short period of time where I lost my mind during COVID, where I believed that like all of the stuff they were telling me was true. Like that's like it's the only time I wasn't part of where I've actually followed the herd was during COVID, where I actually got the vaccine. I wore my little mask, walked around.
Well, because you're a good person, you didn't want to kill old people. It's a pretty reasonable thing to do, to put a mask on if they tell you if you don't, you're going to spread the disease and you could kill old people. That's a very reasonable thing to do.
But the part, no, but Jason, but but I remember very specifically reading like the Great Barrington Declaration that came out, written by some, you know, three very, very sharp physicians and epidemiologists from Harvard, I think Stanford and Oxford.
Yeah.
And these people were made out to be like total quacks. And then you look at their ideas of what they had were actually quite reasonable. But my point is, I remember reading that and going, oh, that kind of does make sense to me. And then seeing like the policy completely switch. So anyways, my point is yeah, I don't know. The Diddy stuff is very dark.
Did you bet? So sorry, back to Cuban for a second. Why do you think he jumped into the Dragon's Den? Why do you think he felt the need?
What triggered him? Because he had opinions for a while, but something seemed to trigger him. You know what?
I don't know. I mean, I don't. You know, for me, it was interesting because you know he blocked me on Twitter, but was still like messaging me and emailing me. I'm just like, and I know the only reason he blocked me is because he didn't want to see what I was posting in my feed because it was bothering him. That's like could be the only reason why. And I don't know. I think he really believes Trump's a bad person, but it doesn't really make sense to me because he said that he knew Trump was a bad person since like forever, but then he was like supporting him in 2016, but then he said he had bad business deals with Trump, but then Trump was president from 2016, 2020. So what businesses could you really be involved in during that time period when he's president of the United States? So I don't know. I'm not sure. Look, he can answer that. He really believed that Kamala, for whatever reason, was the better choice. But it didn't seem to me like it was a reasonable argument. The arguments he was making do not seem reasonable to me personally.
Did you bet on this election?
Yeah, did you bet or trade? And if so, how?
I did on Polymarket. I very early, I mean, the Seltzer poll thing that you guys were talking about, it wasn't like she was just like some random pollster. She had like a very, very good reputation. I think when the poll came out, I think
stellar reputation.
Apparently. I think Nate Silver even said like, oof, I don't want to be sitting across the poker table from Seltzer, basically.
Yeah.
But the odds dropped there. And then she did a video interview that basically made her out to be like a total kook. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that interview that she did, but she basically kind of came across like she didn't know what she was talking about, didn't know what the D and the R stood for. That was like Democrat and Republican.
Wait, where was that? Where was that interview?
It was
she
posted
did
on
everything.
Twitter.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, it was posted on Twitter. I'm not
did
sure
like
what the venue was, but it was on Twitter the day after.
So you bet it based on that.
I did then. I mean, look, I shouldn't have had any position on Trump because I'm just so overexposed as I have been for like the last 15 years or however long in Bitcoin. So it's and obviously a Trump. You could just see that Bitcoin price was tracking Trump's percentage to win the election. So there was a point where I had Trump at like 50 cents, and then I closed it at like when he got up quite high, and then I had no position, and then I thought about buying some Kamala at like 35 cents just to have like a kind of like some
breaking news about Bitcoin.
Insurance.
Is it at an all-time high? 74,000? Is that the high of all time?
Yeah. This is why like to me, as much as I agree with Shane in terms of the prediction markets track like are a lot more accurate than polls. I do believe that is true, but I also believe like if you just follow the price of Bitcoin, the price of Doge, the Mexican US dollar exchange ratio, all of those things were leading, were getting bet up way before the prediction markets started moving, because those are the truest, biggest markets, the most liquid markets. Yeah, Bitcoin was ripping. I mean, Doge, I think, was up 35%.
Doge is at 20 cents.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I didn't have a big election position this election, just because I already, I'm just running my little humble football team.
Are you ever going to tell the story of the bet?
I don't know how this
Trump?
rumor got started, but it sounds like a crazy story. But I've heard some rumblings about it. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. You tell me if you want to go there. There was a guy who was convinced that Trump won 2020, not Steve Bannon, who was just on, but that Trump had actually won last time. And he wanted to bet
that. It's not enough to think that he wanted to think that he's going to win.
And that he was going to win. Yes. That he was going to overturn it in the Supreme Court, and that there were some 10-1 odds or something crazy. And somebody took the other side of this bet and made a large amount of money. And that was you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I don't know. I'm a very disciplined gambler. So for me, there's no Kelly criterion for past posted elections. Like there's no confidence interval ratio for that. I couldn't, but yeah, I don't know. I've heard that story from a few people and it sounds kind of crazy, but
would you take that action if somebody did that in 2020?
Would I lay 11-1 on the fall of the Republic? Yeah, I probably would. I'd probably lay 11-1 on the fall of the Republic, because if that, I think there was like a point when they filed their Supreme Court brief in Texas, and there was like spelling errors and punctuation errors in the brief, and then there was like a statement that like it's proven that he must have won the election because no other president has won this state, that state, and that state and lost the election, which of course is proof of anything. But also I guess Nixon had also done it. So
there you go.
So yeah, but yeah, it was a weird situation. Would I take that bet? Yeah, I probably would, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, there it is, folks. Who knows where that rumor came from? But a good one at that.
Probably Phil Hellmuth, because I've heard him say it 3 times on different podcasts today. So
great, awesome. The Duke of Distraction has spoken again.
Exactly.
So what is your takeaway from what we saw tonight, and just what it means for democracy, America? These political parties, like this feels like seismic, I'm
pretty bullish America right now. Like I have never really been bullish America. I'm not American, to be clear, and I don't live in America. I have in different periods of my life, but I don't anymore. Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on it. I think like the part that's interesting to me is like both sides said that democracy was on the line. Elon made a impassioned play on the Rogan podcast. I actually thought it was quite compelling. His talk of how if they continue to import new citizens and make them citizens and give them voting power rights, these people are going to vote Democrat, and then the only election is going to be the Democratic candidate, and the Republicans will never basically have a chance. Then the other side was saying that, I think Oprah, for instance, yesterday was saying that democracy was done if Trump won. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Trump, to be clear. Like I actually do like him now. I actually do think he's changed a little bit. And while I don't think he's presidential in the way he conducts himself and he can't help himself, some of the things he says, he's very honest about who he is. And that's just who he is as a person. And if you look back at the stuff he said, even like 20 years ago, it was all the same stuff. Whereas Kamala was giving like different versions depending on who she was talking to. And but I'm a big fan of like, I think it's silly to think that Callie Means, who I talked to, and Casey Means, who I talked to Chamath about, those guys have an actual impact on health. I think will make a big difference.
They're great.
I'm a big fan of RFK. I'm a big fan of Elon. So yeah, I'm very bullish on America right now.
Huge
guys.
Shout out to Callie and Casey Means, actually.
Yeah.
I just had to come online here and just say hi to my favorite white dude for Harris, Aaron Levy. Are you on to make your concession speech, or what?
Are you drunk, Sax? It sounds like you're slurring your words. Sax has been drinking.
I just want
to say, Aaron,
I'm not drunk. I've had half a glass of wine. But
wait, Sax, that's not the group I'm in. I'm in beta males for Harris.
Oh yeah. Actually, you had a funny tweet about that. I give you credit for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, of all the Kamala supporters in Silicon Valley, most of whom are just terrible people. You actually are. You are my favorite. You're my favorite Kamala supporter. So,
I don't know if that's a compliment, but
no, it's definitely a compliment.
There are lots of good Kamala supporters out here. Don't worry.
Okay. Listen, I would love to keep talking, but we're at the convention center and it looks like we're all being herded downstairs because
Wow.
Trump is going to speak. I think he's going to make some sort of victory speech. I don't think I can broadcast it. It's probably going to be on TV.
It's
but
broadcasting live.
Are you
on
guys
Fox
are you guys
News
already
and
calling
CNN
it
right now?
Is it
I
called?
don't know. I think it's.
I think Trump's
pretty much
calling this
there.
election and 2020 for
Okay,
himself.
good,
He's calling
okay.
both right now. So
Yeah, I would tone down with that. A little
no
bit,
jokes.
Cal. A
No
little,
jokes are allowed. We just got
little,
Steve
a little
Bannon on.
modesty,
I
a little
actually
bit of humility on your part would be called for.
I texted Trump,
You
Cal's
texted Trump.
address.
Whoa.
I texted him your address, Jason. So
Oh, okay, great. Yes.
All right, I got to drop off. I'll be back
Palmer,
later.
Lucky, and
Okay?
him
All
are
right, Sax,
sending
we'll
a
see ya.
drone to me to
Bye,
the ranch.
Saxico.
Aaron, how are you feeling right about now? You were a big supporter of Kamala. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Wait, guys, the Polymarket's still, it's like, it's, we have it's still a 33-1 chance. We got this. Like there's so much room. I'm trying to buy
Absolutely.
Robinhood contracts right now. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you got room. You got room to play.
Robinhood blocked me earlier today. It was trying to shut me out of the system. I had overspent
You were
my deposits.
cornering the market on Kamala.
I believe in dollar cost averaging, so I thought we could hold on to some upside here. So, but like, it's not like literally fully called. I mean, we're holding on to some counties.
No, you got to wait till January 20th for that, or
I-
January 6th. till
I
they-
really
Let me
hope-
ask you this: when will
I
you
really
be
hope-
riding at the Capitol, Aaron? Are you going to be,
Oh,
leading
we're gonna be riding in all the cities, so it's
all the
good.
cities? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I'll be honest with you. I really hope we deport J-Cal.
Works for
He's
me.
the only one. He's the only one of us that's born here.
You guys don't know who I voted for, by the way.
I really
you
hope
guys
we
don't.
deport
I
you,
may
but
have to show you my
I
vote
really
next
hope
episode.
we deport you.
Maybe on Thursday I should show my ballot. I have a
Wait,
picture
you
of my
take
ballot.
a picture of it? Really?
I have a picture of my ballot. I might have to flip it. Maybe we'll see.
Oh wow.
No, but
Yeah, anything's
hey,
possible.
Aaron,
Yeah.
let's talk about a couple things. So
We don't have to. I mean, I'm
don't know-
good. Yeah.
we don't know where it's going to end, but we know where
Yeah.
it's leaning.
Sure.
So break it down for us. What's your interpretation if what this is where it ends up? What does it mean for what you believe? No, but like,
Yeah.
because you have strong beliefs and
Yeah.
what does it mean that so many people think you have no idea what you're talking about?
You're just talking about my X
no,
replies
no,
at
no,
the
no.
moment.
No,
I know. I fully respect that if this is the outcome, I'm going to be dunked on for the next couple weeks. So
No, but no, all of that aside, no, but
Yeah,
seriously,
yeah.
what do you think it means for what you believe in versus
Yeah.
what a bunch of many other people believe in?
Well, the tricky thing about this whole election cycle has been, I've found many problems with the Democrat kind of, sort of system altogether. The Democrats, there's no question that we have let the party slide, out of being a sort of firmly pro-business, pro-tech party at times. There's been issues around, regulation that absolutely blocks the kind of innovation that we need. I have, extremely, pro-Democrat friends that are doing things for like climate change and they can't get it done because of Democrat policies. So like it's very clear that there's been a number of things that have gone wrong. I have, some beliefs on things like inflation, and all the underlying causes and is that one president's, doing or not. I think we have actually a better economic record right now than the Democrats could make the case for. When you look at unemployment, when you look at the markets, when you look at our just status globally. So I think that case was probably not made as well as it could have been. But I think there's very reasonable arguments on inflation and some areas of the economy that we still have to do work on. But if it does end up being fully the outcome that Trump wins, I think it's pretty clear the set of reasons why, and hopefully the Democrats would have some introspection and say, okay, what are we doing?
Well, so
about
what would you change if you were in control of the Democratic
Yeah.
Party and they lose?
Yeah.
What would you change?
I think the party, I think we have veered more toward regulation. where we shouldn't be regulating. I think we've made it very hard to do business in a number of categories. I think the tax policies have been rough at times. There's no question. I think that you have some culture war dynamics that I think there's still going to be a big conversation about in the country over the coming years that we're going to have to kind of resolve. I think if you look at things like SF and California, whether it's the crime issue, whether it's what's happened to some of the schools, and math in SF. I mean, these are all problems that I think the Democrats need to be able to reconcile and actually start to address as a party. So
Do you think they're capable of it?
Sorry, do I?
Yeah. Do you think they're capable of it? It seems like they kind of don't get it.
I think we are, the party has some mixed views on these topics, and it's tough because I think both parties happen to be kind of big tents at the moment, just cut in these random ways. The reason I was pro Kamala and not pro Trump is there's a set of things that I couldn't get behind on the Republican side in this particular environment, and that makes it equally hard. Now, do they end up winning by a few extra million people or in the right counties with those messages? It's very possible that that's going to be the outcome. But Democrats, I think, it's a tough party because you have, let's say, the extreme left. It starts to fracture pretty massively. Like, what do you do in Israel? You start to peel off different factions. What do you do in education? You start to peel off more factions. And so I think you have to bring it in. I do think we have some degree of centrist leaders that are waking up in the party, or at least moving more to the center. And so hopefully this will be a wake up call for many that have moved more to the left. That would be a great outcome of this if this is the ultimate outcome. And I think hopefully it would set a lesson for some folks.
I think that's well said.
I'm just here to say things
hard
well.
lessons.
So,
well, it's a lot of hard lessons, I think.
Yeah.
They went full woke, and it makes no sense. Yeah.
Do you think
and not having a primary made no sense.
Do you think you would have voted for Kamala if you had other choices, Aaron?
I think it would, you'd have to have run a much longer process. This was a condensed process, and I think just due to the pragmatism of who can you put on a national stage with 3 months to go that everybody's going to rally behind. I think the real postmortem is, you'd have to go back a year or a year and a half and start to have a much more robust conversation around, some of the Biden dynamics.
No one was willing to talk the truth, Aaron. And we had Dean Phillips on earlier today, but everyone saw the cognitive issues with Biden, that he wasn't going to be a good candidate, and they let him run, and they let this whole thing go on way too long. And the Dems
do you think,
going
Aaron,
up against Donald Trump, probably one of the most
Yeah.
disliked political characters in American history, would have been an easy victory if they had just allowed a process to run, they could have had a shot at putting a good candidate forward. It's
Aaron,
just
was it
crazy
o-
that they did that.
Was it obvious to you, Aaron, before the switch?
Did you feel that or no? Because I think we were talking about it over a year ago, like a year and a half ago, probably, is when everyone started obviously. It's like so obvious we should be talking about this, and then they put him up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I went to a Biden event in May, and this May, and we were talking about high school immigration, and the need
was
for
it in the afternoon? I don't mean to make light of it, but
yeah. I mean, it was like not at 10 p.m. So,
Yeah.
like he's not talking high school immigration at
Should it matter?
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, the theory is, I don't mean to poke fun of it, make light of it, is that he was experiencing sundowning, and they said
Yeah.
that he's like there in the afternoon, and then at night, it's a known
Yeah.
thing with people with Alzheimer's or dementia that at night they can become irritable and show
My
signs
Jack
of
Russell,
Alzheimer's.
my Jack Russell Terrier had sundowners. It was very
Stop it! Stop
No,
it.
he really did. He was
Come on,
18
you're
years
I'm
old.
sorry.
Bro,
Yeah.
you would
So-
post pictures. Haralabad would post pictures of his Jack Russell Terrier on his yacht.
No, that's my
Yes.
doodle. That's my doodle. The Jack Russell Terrier passed away during COVID, and he did have sundowners. My doodle is on the yacht.
Okay, Aaron,
But no,
stream
but
has
I'm
gone
being-
off
I'm being-
the
I'm being
rails.
honest.
Sorry, Aaron, go back. So you said in May you felt like, because Reed swears to this, other people swear
Yeah.
to this, that they met with Biden in person this year, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with this guy. He should continue to be president. We should get him reelected." And you were there.
Yeah, but so I mean, you guys spend literally 100 times longer thinking about these types of things than I do. Like, I met Biden. We talked about high skill immigration. He did a speech. Like, it was fine. Like, you don't leave like, wow, I'm so fired up. This is the most amazing, situation of all time. But you're not like thinking to yourself that there's a dimension problem. So I don't know what people are dealing with all day long in the White House. That this is just like not an area that I'm actively thinking about. But if you do have a situation where a new campaign can't get out their message, with enough dialogue, with enough of the right messages, with enough rallying, with enough potential options of what the choice looks like, then clearly have a situation where something should have been done sooner than 3 months ago.
Yeah, and I think the VP pick, they'll look back on that and say she should have done Shapiro, and then she should have done
right, Aaron?
podcasts.
I mean, Aaron, honestly, do you think she should have done Shapiro?
I like Shapiro, but
Yeah.
I'm not. What's that?
How could you not pick Tim Walz? This is one of the most qualified politicians I think America's ever seen.
I don't think that
guy doesn't own his home.
Well, so the
I mean, come on.
I don't think
own his home.
I don't think the postmortem on this is going to be Walz. I think that would be pretty crazy.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't think
you don't think Shapiro though would have been more dynamic? Come on.
Dynamic?
Yeah.
I mean, Walz. If you want like the axis of dynamic, I think Walz is. I don't know if you saw his. Was it Jon Stewart or Colbert or whatever? Like, he's like exactly what you'd expect the median Democrat voter to be excited by. So I don't think that Walz lost this. I think that I think that the party has been, unfortunately, has lost its footing on a number of job related socialist type adjacent topics. I have felt like we should be having a message of let's build more, let's accelerate, let's have more science, let's drive more AI, let's go to space, let's build more businesses. I think some of that message landed. I don't think all of it was, there was enough time to deliver it all. And then of course you just have an albatross that I don't think is related to Kamala or anybody. Yeah.
Aaron, does DEI and wokeism allow you to do your job better, worse, or the same?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we're merging into those things. I think the idea of can we have companies or organizations that are fairer to all employees, that can be thoughtful about hiring and promotions and who's on the board, all of those things like that seems like a very logical direction that we should take things. I mean, actually, JD Vance, it was interesting. There was an interview 2 months ago. I don't know, maybe it was even all in, who knows? But he basically said that when his wife had their first child, it was like hard, like it was like dealing with the workplace became hard. And he was advocating that we should make it easier to have families and be able to be in work environments. And so the idea of creating fairer environments that companies drive and participate in building, I think makes total sense. The idea that anybody should protest every single aspect of their campus or their organization and every single topic, I think obviously we went too far. So there's these things where we lose the plot, and you do have a slippery slope dynamic that can happen. I think we should probably bring things back more into the center. But I also think that the concept itself has probably been weaponized. And probably taken too far in terms of how it's being portrayed in a lot of respects. But weaponized by people that have a completely different plot, that are trying to drive a very different outcome for the country. So
what is that outcome?
There's a lot of people in my Twitter feed that basically say that we should not have high skilled immigrants, that call me a Jew boy or whatever, and these are not people on the left. So this idea that it's the left that is fully compromised by some of these types of things it's just wrong. And so there are some people that are exploiting the ideas of wokeism to make their own case for a different vision for the country than I think is the right vision for the country. And so it would be fantastic if we actually could find the 80% that brings us all together and be able to go and drive that outcome. I think that actually exists. I have optimism that somebody like Elon could actually go and drive that forward. If you look at the makeup of the people that work inside of any Elon company, it looks like the kind of America that I'm talking about that we should be building. But that's not the one that's of the people that are most extreme on saying that wokeism and DEI has destroyed us. Those are not that's not the type of style of organization that those people are thinking about.
Well, he runs an extreme meritocracy.
Totally. But that's not, but the kind, if you see the replies of the people that are most oriented.
No, I'm not, I want to respect that. And
Sure.
and I'm sorry that you see that. I'm just curious, like.
Oh, it doesn't bother me, actually. I'm just saying that we should not pretend that doesn't exist either.
No. And I don't want to take away from.
I'm looking at the YouTube comments right now. I can confirm it exists.
Okay. Are we getting a lot of Jew boys right now?
There's a decent number, yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. But in fairness, they just called me a fat Greek as well.
Chamath, when I tweet something like we should make sure that we bring in the best talent from all around the world to help us build the next set of companies, the amount of people that say that this is a Jewish, woke, globalist ideology, like that is
that's insane.
Okay, but that is an adjacent concept to the people that have weaponized this to make companies feel like they actually have to reel everything back in. So of course we should have meritocracy. There's no question.
Do you think that meritocracy should exist at the sake of diversity?
Meritocracy should exist at the sake of diversity. I think that we should find a way where these are not trade-offs. Like and they're just not perceived to be trade-offs. So I think we can absolutely, blend these two together in a way that you don't compromise on either. Now, I think that a lot of people got upset about the equity component, and there's a lot of definitions that kind of expanded into, and I think that's a super interesting debate because anybody who imagines that we're going to get to equal outcomes, that's obviously not going to happen. So we have to be thoughtful about the fact that we're going to have a system that when you have merit, that there are going to be different outcomes. But we should
actually, so double click on that, because Friedberg brought this up at the beginning of the pod. It just seems like successful people are hated in America. You're very successful. You started this company right out of college. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. You've done very well. Should people not like you without knowing you, I guess maybe is the question. Like, don't you deserve to have the success that you've achieved?
Yeah, but like I'm not like that's not what doesn't keep me up at night. So I also am like realistic that the upbringing I had absolutely contributed to my ability to go and build a multi-billion-dollar company. So like I think it's like not crazy to think like, okay, we should probably keep working on improving the environments for everybody. And this is not a race thing. Like we should do this across the country. Like we should build a society where anybody can go on and build a company and innovate and execute. So there's no question about that. And I think that's again where things started to maybe lose the plot a little bit was this became I'm like a 3-hour expert in the topic, but this any of the kind of oppressed type things that appeared on campuses, like that's obviously insane. Like that's clearly an example of this going way too far. But the idea that you can build like inclusive organizations and that you might be thoughtful about like, your talent hiring process is just a totally reasonable thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you think that these guys are going to be successful in tearing down all of this infrastructure inside the United States? Do you look forward to it? Do you think it has a chance? What do you...
So are we talking about
I guess
Doge?
maybe more pointedly, like, is
Yeah.
it hard for you to do business in the United States in ways where you wish that it would be easier?
We're really lucky. I mean, in the land of bits, it's about as simple as it gets. I think where we clearly have a crisis is energy, transportation, EVs, anything autonomous. You can list 20 things that run into just unending regulation. You have the state regulation, you have the federal regulation. Just endless loops that people go into. So like no matter what, we need to go and solve that. Actually, I felt like Kamala was one of the first sort of Democrat presidents that had that as a message. It was like not the most expansive part of the message because there's like 50 things you have to get out in 3 months. But she talked about red tape. She talked about we have to beat China. We have to move faster, all of that. you know, in the Trump outcome scenario, you have obviously Elon as this sort of superpower that can go and drive a lot of that way faster. I'd hope it's kind of applied somewhat surgically versus a total hammer, because I just think there's you know, like I think having some degree of thoughtfulness of where can we go and, you know, create these fast lanes for innovation and for acceleration, I think is a good thing. But yeah, like getting drugs approved faster, building more houses. It's insane, our housing and zoning laws. Being able to do anything in transportation, shipping, logistics. Like, we should make sure that this is, you know, the century where we just go crazy with innovation and building. And the great thing is it's going to create an insane amount of jobs. It will also mean that we have to do more on immigration, because we're going to need the talent to both create the ideas and actually work for these organizations.
All right. We have no more guests coming, correct, Nick? This is it. We've wrapped.
Unless David Sachs pops back in
All
with
right.
another victory lap. No, this is it.
I mean, I think we've been going for 3 hours. I think it's time for
2:30.
us.
2:30.
2:30 is a pretty good one.
Jason,
I
are you
see.
tired or something? What time?
No,
is it?
I'm just wondering how much longer we could go. I mean, I think we're done here. Our work has been done.
Well,
I
Trump's
don't
not
have
gonna
any
give
else
us-
I'm
coming
glad
on.
you guys woke me up at 6:30 in the morning, my time, to answer 2 questions and have to listen to
Aaron talk about DEI.
Rolla Bob,
Yeah,
Bob, why don't you tell these guys a story about your soccer team, which really is the real life version?
It is true.
Of
You
that
are doing Ted
documentary-
Lasso. He
No,
is
not Ted Lasso.
Ted
Rolla Bob,
Lasso
what's the
is a
name of
comedy,
the?
but
Who are the name of the
Wrexham,
guys?
I mean, the
It
Welcome
looks
to
like
Wrexham.
Harris
Yeah.
might be giving a speech.
Oh, can we pull that up?
No,
Jeez.
not yet.
No, we will
So-
get booted.
Yeah, they're cutting to both Fox.
I think you could show
and
a picture in a picture.
CNN
The one thing I would like
Chrome
to say
page.
is just doesn't have anything to do with me is I'm here in Spain. I don't know if you guys have been following the Valencia region, even Barcelona. There's been awful floods, devastating floods. If you go to my football team's Twitter, we're raising money to give to the people who are affected, and I have agreed to match every dollar 1 for 1 up to 500,000. So
wow.
up until Monday. So if anyone wants to donate, the money will be put to a good
All right,
cause.
I'm in for $5,000.
There you go.
$5,000.
$5?
$5,000.
I lost all my money
5,000.
today.
Match it if you want. I just
Well-
did my first buy-in. 5,000. I'm in for 5,000. I just said it.
You know, listen, I'm just, yeah. I mean, it's just making
Every bit helps. Yes,
every
Aaron,
bit
you're in for
definitely does
5.
help. Yeah, or you just even giving exposure to it, so other people who want to help.
Freeberg, are you in for 5?
Send me a link. We're
Yeah,
in.
send me a link.
Aaron's in for 5.
same.
Freeberg, you're in for 5.
Send me a link.
Chamath's
I
in for
got it.
5. I'm sure.
Guys,
That's
listen,
20 right there.
It
We're in.
also looks like San Francisco voted Daniel Lurie in for mayor.
Oh wow!
Oh, friend
Really?
of the pod is now running
Friend
the
of the pod.
city. Tee hee
And
hee.
voted a lot of the candidates that were meant to kind of be some of the transformative candidates on the board of supervisors. So I think San Francisco is also making kind of a resounding
San Francisco is such a
like-
garbage dump. I hope they
Yeah, I
fix
mean-
it.
Did Gascon get voted out too? In
Let's
LA?
take a look.
I just saw that go
Looks
by.
like it. Yeah.
San
He
Francisco
was like polling
is
at like
what
20% a
socialist-
week ago.
You know what's amazing is like all of these policies. There are a couple of places. Oregon implemented some of these policies. San Francisco
Yeah,
did the
Gascon's
rest.
out.
You can study the impact of these things, so you don't have to guess, and that's very valuable. So, for example, the decisions on prosecutions, the decisions on open air drug markets, the decisions on legalizing of hardcore drugs. We now have huge bodies of evidence that these things don't work. So you do not need to spend $200,000 and go to an Ivy League school to pretend that you think that these ideas are good ideas.
I don't think the people who are even implementing these ideas necessarily think they're good ideas. I think they realize it's a way to have themselves climb up the ladder in the Democratic Party. You know, this Soros kid is collecting these politicians like Pokemon cards. I don't know if you've seen his Instagram. He's got different pictures of a different politician every week.
If it makes you feel better, I didn't want to legalize marijuana, so.
I think
You
marijuana
didn't?
is I think marijuana is a scourge. I don't think it should be legalized. And I'll just say
wow.
this, for all the parents that think it's okay, this is not your marijuana.
No, of course not. But I
The
mean,
drugs
legalized
that
for
are
adults,
being,
obviously.
drugs
is
that
a
are
good
being
idea.
sold to kids have no understanding of toxicity and impact. These kids are using these things and it's causing them all kinds of damage. it's not cool to smoke drugs. It's not cool to do drugs. I'm sorry.
No, of course not. But
like, wake up.
Legalizing cannabis is a fine idea, or at least decriminalizing it.
Okay, like fine, but you should highly regulate it. It's insane. People have lost the script. It's insane.
I gotta jump, but hey, this has been
Aaron, this has been great.
a great
everybody
evening.
go open a box account.
Hey, Aaron, thank you for joining
hopefully
us.
Hopefully it's not chaos. Steve
Aaron,
Bannon
if you're around on December 7th, come to our party.
All right.
Come on December 7th, and
Aaron, thanks, bro.
Do a shot.
See you guys.
Take care, Aaron.
Rollerbob, fly to America, bro. Come and see us.
I will. Yeah,
Come back to my house. Let's play poker. We'll
play some cards. We'll do it.
Hey,
we'll do
my
a full
favorite word,
Saturday.
your house and poker. I'm down. Definitely
I'm
down.
in. Let's do it.
I really appreciate that you woke up so
Harala
early.
Bob, where
Thank you.
can people go to donate? This is actually a really good idea, and we'll put it in the show
If you
notes
just
or
go to
whatever.
my Twitter at Harala Bob, I'll retweet it now, so it'll come up. But it's
Awesome.
yeah, there's lots of different ways. You want to donate to the Red Cross, you can. It's just I've agreed out of my own. I'm going to.
I love it. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be in Spanish, but I'll repost it, and then I'll repost the English one. In a
Hey,
minute,
Nick,
but-
call
Pat
Sachs
mentioned
on his
this.
cell phone and ask him to hop on Zoom on his cell phone just to wrap the night and just
All
hear
right,
how
I'll
it's
call him
going
right
over
now.
there. And just give him a call, and then let's just hop on and just get a quick shot. He's in the room. I see it on TV. And it looks like both the Harris and Trump HQ assemblies are kind of happening right now, where everyone's coming on stage. Sounds like, yep, CNN is calling Georgia for Trump. So the concession and victory speech might be underway. You guys
It's
wanna
so
wrap
crazy. If you
before
go to
that
the New York
happens, right?
Times, it says Harris 210 and Trump 230. So they're like almost pretending it's
Well,
close.
they're just calling it on CNN right now. So now CNN's got Trump at 246, and it looks like the two candidates are going to do their kind of speeches in a minute here.
Huh.
But we should get Sachs on real quick because I think he's in the room at the Trump HQ there. We can kind of.
He just sent me
have
right to
him Give
voicemail.
us the big wrap. Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait.
All
he's
right,
calling me back.
everybody.
Hold on. He's
Wait,
calling me
hold
back.
on.
Oh,
Folks, come back.
wait,
I
no.
wonder,
canceled
I
it.
wonder
Sorry,
who's going to
hold on.
run Treasury and State.
Whoa. JCal, housing and urban development for you. What do you think? Would you do that?
I mean, I
wonder
could
who's gonna
be
run- I wonder who's gonna
press
run the
secretary,
FDA.
no problem. Yeah. I would be press secretary.
I will say I have some empathy for JCal because I started thinking like if I had to put up with 4 years of Kamala, I would be like as completely deranged as JCal was after
I
4
mean,
years of Trump.
I'll be totally
Well,
honest.
Bob.
I'm if my issues with Trump have always been around January 6th and the election denial, which I think a lot are fair things to have an issue with him. And I've said from the beginning, I'm not down with Kamala and
No, I understand.
her being appointed. If anybody doesn't have character issues with Trump, they have not been paying attention. Now, I do understand it's a binary choice, you got to pick one. And so I do get it. And, maybe people would be surprised by my vote. I don't know.
I mean, you keep
Oh,
teasing
well-
it. Are you just going to show us the ballot with Trump ticked or what? I mean,
I mean, maybe I'll save it for another episode. I don't want to
my
be
God.
gratuitous
You
here,
said
but
you were going to announce your vote on election night.
Jason, you
Ah.
can if it listen, if you did vote for Donald J. Trump, you can come to the inauguration, January 20th.
I am I do have concerns about Trump's presidency. When you hear Steve Bannon and some of these lunatics saying things like they want to deport 15 million people and that has to start tomorrow, you do have to get worried. Is Trump going to listen to Elon? Is he going to listen to Steve Bannon? Is he going to listen to Sachs and you, Chamath? Or is it
Do you
going to
think
be
Elon
these
doesn't
darker
wanna
people
deport
around
the-
him?
Do you think Elon is fine with 15 million?
Of course not. I know for a fact he's not. Yes,
Okay.
of course not. So the question is, who does Trump listen to?
Well, you
if
remember
he-
what JD Vance said at the All In Summit. He said,
start
"We're
with
gonna
1 million. Yeah. Criminals.
Start with the
yeah.
criminals and you slowly work your way. I mean, he's got a plan that seems different than Steve Bannon, right? I mean, there's a whole cacophony of ideas that I think Trump is going to have to figure
Look, at
out.
the end of the day, these people that are in the country should not be the ones that are blamed for being here. They were told they could come. There was an open
100%.
border, and now
they
you have to
came
deal.
from and they came from fucking shitty conditions, and they're looking for a
100%,
better
yes.
life. And a degree of
Correct.
empathy around the circumstances that all
Yes.
these people are dealing with is super important as we tackle this really hard issue for the country. So I don't want to just be fucking like flippant and blasé about it.
No,
like,
no,
oh,
no.
we got to kick people out. And how do we, this is like, these are people's lives and it's like really difficult. Many of us were very fortunate to come to this country as well and start a new
mean,
life here, right?
3 of the 4 besties are immigrants. Elon, immigrant. Like we have a,
and by
that's
the way,
one of
we
the best things about this country.
came, I mean,
we're all about
yeah,
immigrant.
yeah.
We're all about.
I'm not even an American citizen. I will never
he's
get
not
a
an
green
American
card.
citizen.
But many of the
No, but
people
he
who are
lived in
immigrants
America for a long time.
many of these, labeled illegal immigrants came from far worse conditions than many of us, and it's a struggle to think about like how do you deal with the humanity of the whole thing.
Again,
So
I go
let's
back
let's just not be so flippant about it, right? Like
yes.
Yeah, I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying that about anyone. I'm just saying it's going to be a really hard issue to tackle.
I think that this is a very complicated topic, and I do agree that an enormous degree of empathy is required. I think it's very straightforward, though, to stop what's happening at the border, so that
Agreed.
we don't increase this problem and make it worse. We need to deport the criminals immediately.
No brainer.
And then we need to work through a process that tries to humanely and compassionately deal with the rest of the folks. I think that that's straightforward. Now, put that issue to the side. There's an enormous amount of other work that this administration, if it does turn out to be a Trump administration, can get done. And I think that it is a refounding moment for the United States. And the reason I say that is it allows us to completely reset the expectations of administrative class of people that I think fundamentally think they are better than many Americans. And I have felt that on my skin. I take that a little bit personally, probably. Maybe I'm being a little bit petty when I say this. And so if it does turn out that Donald J. Trump wins, I'll be honest with you, I'm excited.
Okay, so
All
the
right.
speeches have started. Harris's campaign co-chair.
No Kamala Harris tonight. He said she will not speak tonight. She'll talk
She'll
tomorrow.
not speak tonight. I see.
That's it. Everybody go home. All right. All right, everybody. It looks like it's virtually guaranteed at this point that Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. Is that right? 47?
Yes, 47th.
47th
And
president of the
sorry,
United States.
is Trump going to give his speech now? Or is he gonna wait?
I'm on the thing right now. I haven't seen him yet, but I'll let you know
I
when he
am
comes up.
watching.
And Nick, can you just tell us if Zach's going to be able to join again or no?
He didn't answer my call and then put me on voicemail, so I don't think so. But I'll call him
I'm
again.
going home. I'm going to bed.
Okay,
All right.
guys. We'll call it.
All right,
Thank
everybody. Thanks for coming on. Harala Bob. Everybody.
Night, guys. Harala Bob, thank you,
night.
bro.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,
Enjoy.
we'll
Yeah.
see you
be
next
You
well.
guys want to
Be
do
well.
a reflection on America on election night?
Sure.
Jamal?
Go ahead. You start.
See you guys. Ciao.
See you
Ciao.
later.
Go ahead, Freeberg. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll kind of figure it all out, but tomorrow's going to be feel like a very different day. I think.
You want me to show some tweets I saw tonight that I thought were interesting that you guys could
No,
react
I
to?
want Freeberg to actually share his opinion.
Okay,
Yeah,
go.
go Freeberg. Let's hear it.
I'm pretty
Who'd you
tired.
vote for, Freeberg?
I was pretty tired.
That's
Did you
your
vote
opinion.
Trump, Freeberg?
I voted for RFK.
You're such a troll. You did not vote for RFK. You voted for Trump. We know. You don't like socialism. Who does?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think that for just speaking on the politics of what took place over the past year and a half, I think there were, for me, like if you look back on the campaign that the opportunity set that the Democrats had along the way, they let the Biden thing go on too long. They should have run a speed primary.
100%.
And the VP pick was off. Everything else seemed to be a pretty well executed campaign. I mean, they had hard hitting messages. They were really clear, but it seems like the messages just didn't resonate as strongly as those from the Trump campaign. And yeah, I mean, I just really worry about the idea of dropping all income taxes while keeping entitlements fully funded. And there's a lot of big question marks ahead for the next 4 years. So buckle up.
Shamath, any
Buckle
final
up.
thoughts here as we wrap?
What did Freeberg just say? It was
Buckle up.
No, he didn't say
word
anything.
salad.
I'm too tired.
It's a word
It's
salad.
a word
It was a
salad.
Kamala word salad.
Yeah. He's not afraid of what has been or what could be. He's
Don't be
enthralled
burdened.
at,
Don't be burdened by
he's
what has
not
been.
burdened by tonight's live stream or what happens on December 7th
Oh my
at
God.
the holiday spectacular.
Are you going to the inauguration, Jamal?
Yeah.
Jake, how you can be his +1. All right, guys.
Nope.
All right.
Jake
My
L, any
beautiful
final
wife
words?
will be my plus
Any
one.
reflections, Jake
Well,
L?
no, she invited me. I'm her plus one. So
Okay.
you've got a plus one, plus one. All right, everybody. We will. Oh, here we go.
What?
Elon Musk from Mar-a-Lago. It made a huge difference that Trump and Vance went on lengthy podcasts like Rogan, All In, and Lex. They appeal to the normal person. Nothing would do more damage to Kamala's campaign than going on Rogan and hitting Harris 2 or 3. She would have melted. She would be a melted puddle of nonsense. I mean, I guess if we were to look at this, the fact that the Democrats could not field a candidate that would beat Trump, who was incredibly unpopular as a candidate, speaks volumes to how the Democrats are running their primaries and their institution. They need to do some serious soul searching as to why they kicked really successful people out of the Democratic Party and why they don't have an inclusive tent. I've never felt more included than by the Republican Party. I have been 100 different ways courted by Republicans and 0 from Democrats. So I think they, are doing a terrible job of courting Silicon Valley technologists, venture capitalists, and just builders in the country. And we heard that tonight from a number of people. God bless America, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Love you, boys.